new business, am I talking about the Public Information Committee, or are you talking
because
about it?
since you were there, you should talk about it. I think so.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay.
Are we good?
In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has given adequate notice of this meeting by having published the date, time, and place of this meeting in the Home News Tribune and has posted notice of this meeting at Bartle School, 435 Mansfield Street, Highland Park, New Jersey. Linda, can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Aversa?
Here.
Ms. Berkowitz? Ms. Bull?
Here.
Ms. Simarusti?
Here.
Mr. Dietz?
Here.
Mr. Ross?
Here.
Ms. Sherber? Mr. Sherman? Mr. Wharton?
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Need a motion for the approval of the June 25th, July 16th, July 21st, and August 4th regular public and executive session minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion on any of those?
I just had a couple of quick things. On the June 25th meeting for the executive session, it wasn't noted that I was dismissed for negotiations. And on the August 25th meeting, maybe this was just, I don't know if this was done this way on purpose, but on
August 25th?
August 25th?
That's today.
I'm sorry, July 25th.
July 21st?
Is that the right, wait.
July 16th?
Hold on, let me go back. Now the wrong date. Is it 6/25? Yes, I'm sorry, it was the July 25th meeting.
June 25th meeting.
June. Yeah, June. For 5 and 6 and 16 and 17, the votes were recorded as 6-3 when there were only 6 of us here. And then at that same meeting on the personnel items, the vote was recorded as 6-0 when I had abstained on 1 through 8.
But you did approve on 9? There were 9 motions?
Yeah, I see that, but when I went back to the video and it had just said 6-8, so I don't know if something changed along the way, or I think I had abstained on all of them, so it must have been 1-9.
We should check that.
Yeah, I'll double check it again tomorrow too.
Is
That
there
was
any-
it, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Is there any other discussion? Linda?
Ms. Aversa?
Yes to June 25th, abstain from July 16th. Yes to July 21st, abstain from August 4th.
I'm sorry, this is a little complicated. So you said yes to June 25th.
Abstain
Abstain.
from July 16th.
Yes to the 21st, and abstain from August 4th.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bull?
Yes to June 25th, abstain to the 16th, abstain to the 21st, and yes to the 4th.
Ms. Simorosti?
Yes.
Mr. Dietz?
I believe I can say yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Wharton?
Yes, except for the 25th.
So June 25th, you abstain?
Linda, communications?
There were relatively few communications since the July 21st meeting. There was a letter that the board received today regarding the Irving Playground. I believe there's just one or two in between.
Thank you.
Oh, also, may I say one other thing? I wanted to also remind the board members that the New Jersey School Boards Association Annual Workshop will be held on October 28th through 30th in Atlantic City. If anyone is interested in attending, please contact me or my administrative assistant. Thank you.
For the superintendent's report, and just for today, I've invited Mr. Lassiter to sit in. Mr. Lassiter, as everybody knows, is the principal of the high school. He is not our new superintendent, but he will be joining us just to offer the administrative perspective on some of the questions that folks might have today and offer some insight on that. For the superintendent's report, we actually have a number of presentations. We've got Brian Humphrey doing the technology plan presentation, an ELL program outline, which will be done by Mr. Shalala, and visual arts program update, which will be done by the Bartle School principal, Mr. Benjamin. So, without further ado.
Can everybody hear me? Good evening. The District Technology Committee met on 3 occasions from March into this summer, and we went over a variety of items that were part of the technology plan and also some that weren't necessarily part of the ongoing technology plan and may or may not be added at any point in the future. The first tech meeting was convened to discuss old district technology installations and the current state of computing resources in the school district. I give an example here. The Bartle Media Center was originally used as a lab with 31 computers and is now down to 10 original systems, plus 6 old Dells that were transplanted from the high school and middle school media center to try and make up for the shortfall. Just in case anybody hasn't seen these, I'll go through them very quickly. This is the state of everything, or was the state of everything in September, October of last year. This is what we looked like in terms of systems in a variety of locations. A lot of these systems are from 1998 and 2000 and 2004 and 2005. The second tech meeting was convened to continue to discuss old district technology installations and also the current state of computing resources in the district. Included in that meeting was a laundry list of tech systems and items purchased summer 2014 that are intended to help reduce the marginalization of technology in Highland Park schools. So we've gone ahead this summer and we've added all the Chromebooks to the mix. The high school has 6 Chromebook carts. 4 of them have 30 Chromebooks in them. 2 of them have 25. The Bartle Elementary School has 26 hand-built charging carts with 4 Chromebooks per cart, and that's 26 regular ed classrooms. There are also 30 other units that are at Irving. And then in the middle school, there are 4 more carts to mate up with the original cart, which the 4 also have 30 each. And we moved on that all during the summer. I mean, we had one defective cart that came in and had to be sent back. And we did get a replacement for that. We've changed out our firewall filter for the district to something that's got a much, much faster speed associated with it, much faster, about 3 times faster than the one that we used to have. So it'll be able to process our filtering data a lot faster than what we used to be able to do.
Brian, I'm sorry, can I ask a quick
Yes,
question?
go ahead.
Do you know, is there an idea how the 30 in Irving are going to be implemented, or where are they on a card? Or are they...
Right now, they're in storage at Irving, as are the ones for the media center here at Bartle. They haven't necessarily been earmarked for individual classrooms or even for the media center right now. So I don't have any background material. I am working with Israel on the distribution of some of these. I'm also working with him on the curriculum material that's presently resident on those.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. We've added controllers to the wireless district-wide that control all the wireless in all the buildings, and these work together in tandem as an individual stack. They have a lot more features than the original wireless controllers that we had for the Wi-Fi district-wide. We're still adding more access points. I mentioned this probably January, February at a board meeting. We are still adding access points to make up for holes and small shortfalls, plus we're still trying to change out ones that are giving us spotty performance. That's still in progress. We have gigabit microwave links between the buildings now. We're going a lot faster, and we can conform to a lot of standards as far as what we can do at an individual site now. The original connection between the buildings was 10 meg. This is gigabit. This is obviously 100 times faster. This is our gigabit link to our district internet service provider. That went in late last month. And it comes in through the top of the media center, as you can see by the bottom left slide. There's conduit coming out of the ceiling into the main wiring closet. Temco did the in-house electrical service over here for the twist lock plugs. And then in the center is the actual active equipment that's been provided to us by our internet service provider.
Can I just interrupt for a second?
Certainly.
Describe what a gigabit microwave data link is and why that's important.
Gigabit microwave data link is a wireless link between the schools that provides two-way data communication at a very, very high speed. I don't necessarily know how I would drop that down as far as the definition is concerned. Normally, you would have these kinds of links on a wired connection, and that wired connection would have a renewable service charge. In the case of these links, these are a one-time charge, and these will probably be good for us for at least the next 3 to 5 years.
So what kinds of things could it be used? What type of software would be used?
We can do a full multimedia between facilities. You could probably have 40 to 60 different YouTube videos all being watched at the same time via a link like this. The enhancement to this is the gigabit coming from our internet service provider. I'll move on to that in a few moments. But this affords us a lot more speed. This affords us a lot more performance increase out at the individual buildings between Bartle and Irving. Did that help at all?
Yeah, so am I correct in stating that this saves us from having to hardwire each individual school with
Yes.
gigabit internet? Okay.
Yes. I'm still in the process of replacing network switches out at the extents of the network, the ones that feed the individual desktops. I haven't gotten through with that project yet. I'm replacing a 14-year-old network hardware that was put here under an AT&T contract 1 year before I got here. I've also changed over the fiber that feeds the high school, middle school to a new network switch. That's that box there at the top with the orange fibers going to it. Myself and John Gartner, who's manning the camera tonight, have been working on that for the last 2 weeks. We're going to be doing more of it tomorrow. I expect us to finish by Thursday. This is the switch that actually sends the information from our internet service provider over to Bartle and Irving and over to the high school. This particular device manages the traffic, and I can throttle the traffic between buildings should one building start to impinge on the other.
Can you can you look at the source of individual parts of that traffic to identify what types of machines or what?
Yeah, I have a piece of software called Wireshark, and I use Wireshark if I need to try and look at those kinds of pieces of information.
And the purpose of aggregating the data is to determine whether we're actually running whether we're up to what we need or whether we need to purchase more, or?
Given the overall cost of the gigabit pipe, I would rather throttle it back a little bit and tell schools to maybe take their performance expectations down a little bit than say we need even more bandwidth than we have today. We would be penalized in a major way if we decided we needed even more bandwidth. It's very, very expensive. Next on the list are some items that are appropriate for the district given our current lack of technology resources. Now, I say this based on just the things that we've done in the past 2 years. We really haven't added new systems. We haven't changed our network. We haven't bought individual items for classrooms. I mean, we've been kind of sitting still and static. These are items that aren't going to be terribly expensive for the district to pursue, and they are doable within the bounds of what we're trying to manage in the district. Interactive whiteboards in most, if not all, classrooms. The Tech Committee agreed that there's a need to add resources of this type to all of our classrooms. Now, I don't know if you read the entire agenda for tonight, but there's a motion on there to approve a purchase of some Promethean active boards for the middle school. The Tech Committee really wants to see these across the board in every classroom or in as many classrooms as possible district-wide. There are other types of devices. There are interactive projectors. Epson makes one. Mimeo boards, which kind of mimic reduced functionality as far as an interactive whiteboard. The e-beam, which is also that same type of device. But the Tech Committee did agree that we need to have these kinds of things in our classrooms.
Can you just explain what a Promethean active board is, just for the folks who don't?
If you've ever seen, let's see, ESPN uses a type of product like this. You can actually walk up to the device with a picture on it, an active chunk of video or computer-driven anything, and you can touch the board as if you were touching a trackpad or moving a mouse around and selecting individual elements of that picture. So it gives you the same kind of functionality you would have with an individual touch-based computer screen, but in a much larger format at a 6-foot diagonal on your wall in the classroom. So anybody from the smallest child, and we have a few of the interactive whiteboards mounted at 2 foot from the floor in Irving from the old generation, on up to middle schoolers and high schoolers who would have it at waist height, everybody can take advantage of this kind of a resource. Document cameras. In our entire district, we have 2 document cameras. We've never bought any. Our media specialist here at Bartle decided she wanted one. That one ended up over at Irving because she felt it was more useful with the younger children. But there are many, many brands out there, and to use a document camera with the interactive whiteboard would be a charmed life for any teacher in a classroom because they could do nearly anything as far as projecting their view in front of the students.
So let me just interject. So a document camera is, student does work by hand, let's say, a math problem or something of that sort. Document camera is used to take a video or a picture of that in real time. It's then projected through the projector onto the screen. So, you know, the days of, let's say, doing work at your desk and then going up to the board and then copying it on the board, that kind of thing, you don't need to do that if you have a document camera. You can also take things like text, like if you're an English teacher, you have a book and you want to highlight a certain passage, maybe not everybody has that book in front of them. You can take that book and put it in the document camera. It will then project that passage or that paragraph or whatever it is onto the screen. So it helps with interactivity. It helps with, you know, classroom time management as well. It's definitely a great tool.
Yeah, just to add a moment to that, I don't know how many of you are my age, but opaque projectors. The document camera is today's version of the opaque projector. Due to the age of the staff computers, the committee really looked at what I had to say as far as how many Windows XP stations we have, what the age of all the staff laptops are, and there was very much agreement across the board that we do need to upgrade our staff as far as their laptops are concerned. I picked the different brands that everybody seems to take to: Dell, HP, Lenovo, and Toshiba. I've had personally bad experiences with Toshiba, not to put them in any bad light, but I have had bad experiences. Top cost on a comparable system was the Dell at $88,000 for 150 units for all teaching staff. Next price down was the Hewlett-Packard at $84,000. Next price down was the Lenovo at $83,000, and then the Toshiba's at $71,000. So this is the ballpark pricing. I pulled this pricing on the 1st of July. We did just recently buy 22 laptops of this type of configuration for IEP Direct for the special ed department. I paid approximately $450 each, so it actually undercuts this price of the $479 that was the price for the Toshibas. So prices have moved downward slightly over the summer.
And what would be the life expectancy of units like that?
Life expectancy on any laptop is 3, 4, maybe 5 years at the most. We've been living on borrowed time with the hardware that we have. Fortunately, our most recent round of staff have been taking care of the hardware that they've been allocated, but I have had experiences with past staff where laptops are treated like toys. They weren't handled carefully, they weren't managed well, but 3 to 5 years on a laptop.
Does that 150 represent the total number of our staff or the total number of...
That represents the total number of teaching staff. Doesn't include paraprofessionals, doesn't include
So the
secretaries.
recommendation is to replace all of them all at once?
Well, I have a slide coming up talking about life cycle replacement of hardware, and maybe I can answer your question after that. I don't
sure.
necessarily believe that you need to go, as they say, whole hog, and take them all out and replace them 100%.
Okay, that's what I was asking. If you're going to answer it later,
Yeah,
please
you
go
do.
on.
You do have some slightly newer generation laptops out there, not many.
Okay.
I don't know if this can be read. Probably not. I'll probably be seen on camera. This staff number, I have an asterisk up here. I know it's tiny. These numbers are approximate. Some staff prefer to work from their personal Mac or PC. It seems like as we move forward, we have more and more staff who just prefer to bring their own technology. So there's less onus on the district to actually replace those older machines that are aging out. So, I mean, we are getting a little bit of a break there as far as having to spend the district money.
Isn't the reality, though, that that's probably a preference due to the old age of the
Yes.
the hardware that they
Yes.
have access
Yeah,
to?
if we get newer hardware, they're probably going to take to it right away. The current crop of Chromebooks, the ones we just bought, they have a lifespan of 3 years, according to Google and Google OS Standards for Education. It's a 3-year license that they sell us. All of the current desktop computers and more than 90% of the laptops in use by students are at a point in which they have passed their useful lifespans. We have some Windows 7 machines. Windows is on Windows 8.1 right now and still chugging along. There's Windows 9 in the pipe somewhere right now. If HP schools are to continue to compete in the realm of being a technologically forward school district, then a plan has to be put forth in detail that addresses life cycle replacement of tech resources on a district-wide basis. Life cycle replacement was never an item addressed in the tech plan. It was always stated that there was no money for it. Well, it's because the money was always looked at in the year that whatever the situation was occurring. There was no pre-planning, so to speak. It's the exact reason why we're currently having difficulties regarding replacement of aging or obsolete tech items. There needs to be a plan for life cycle replacement that places a closeout date on the usefulness of items such as the Chromebooks, network hardware, and any other computers. We need to define how long we're willing to put up with an older standard of technology so that we know when we need to get rid of that, so that we know how many systems we're turning over, so that we know how much we're going to spend. That's never been done. It needs to be done. It will make things a lot less painful for the district each year when it comes up time to replace some of this technology. So my suggestion is a life cycle replacement encompasses the commitment of budget monies at least 1 year in advance of the existing population of computers and other tech items approaching obsolescence for the purpose of purchasing newer systems as the oldest ones age out. I know that's a run-on mouthful there, but that's the reality of this. If you don't do it, you're going to be behind the 8 ball again when the 3 years expire on the Chromebooks. The conclusion, and I came to this with people from the tech committee, we're just starting here. We're trying to play catch up. It's going to take us a while to get to a place where the district is, shall we say, more than minimally functional in the realm of technology. All the items mentioned don't constitute a complete list of possibilities. They're not the be-all, end-all at any given point. And it's just a starting point. It's just One more thing to look at. The stated hardware that I've listed here scratches the surface of addressing long-term planning goals and opportunities. The basic tech plan and the tech committee will need to be a foundation for constantly revisiting and revising the goals of the plan, and for making other significant changes to the plan as appropriate. We have to look at the plan as a living document. We should be changing it year to year. Our last meeting of the tech committee was in the beginning of July. We need to reconvene it. We should reconvene it again in the latter part of September, just to start the discussion again and look at the possibility of making changes to that tech plan.
Brian, can you talk a little bit about who the tech committee itself, who's been attending meetings?
The tech committee was comprised of staff members in March. It was comprised of members of the community in March. It was over the summertime. There were very few staff members attending. We had people from the community there. There was no overwhelming response for staff to attend during the summertime.
Right. I mean, I'm just wondering if it might not, moving forward, behoove us to have specific people who are on the committee, consistent from meeting to meeting, so we have kind of make sure that, at any given meeting, we have a wide swath of...
From our first meeting, we solicited everybody's email address, and then we re-emailed everybody on the second and the third meetings. So we did have a cadre of interested people, but as time went by, that number diminished.
Right. I mean, and I think maybe the core group could even be a smaller group of people, maybe 5, 6, people like that. I mean, I think this is how the borough runs a lot of their committees, where you may only have 5 or 6 people on it, and if you're going to have a meeting, you reach out to those 5 or 6 people and say, hey, can everybody make that meeting? So you have a consistent group, and then you can always draw more people into that, but you always have a core group of people who are aware of the issues, have been a part of it from the beginning and are, committed to moving that process forward. Not that you're just putting out an email to 30 people and hoping, do you know what I mean? So you have 5 or 6 committed people that represent staff, parents,
Sure.
administration, maybe a couple of people from each group. You get people who commit to that, and then you schedule your meetings around when those people are available. And I'm sure we'd have 2 or 3 parents, 2 or 3 staff members, 2 or 3 administrators who would all commit to doing that, and then we could move that committee forward. I think that continuity would be really helpful.
I think that would be marvelous.
And I think we can definitely do that, especially with
And a board member,
looking for the end of September, something like that. Certainly gives us enough time to look at who's been in there, who's been involved, and we can set something like that up, definitely.
And then probably have like a board rep or liaison or something to...
I very much like that suggestion. One observation and one question. The observation, pretty much just a reiteration of what you said, is that the details that you've provided us with tonight, if we were to think of the technology plan as building a house, then essentially this is the foundation. Foundation / kind of drawing it up as we go to some extent, but very, very definite the foundation upon which we can build. So I think that is a solid beginning. And then the question, technology, pretty much laptops, desktops do have a 3-year life cycle in most industries. If we were to go that route, rather than it being one major capital outlay, would it be possible to work with those vendors to basically lease with a buyback option over the 3-year? Now, that can be more expensive because we tend to pay a premium on that. Additionally, it's not going to let us stretch it to the 5-year. It would typically limit us to the 3-year. But then we'd probably be looking at a $25,000 a year outlay rather than an $80,000 hit in one given year. I'm not sure if we're able to do that in the public sector, but it's definitely options that we've looked at in the past in my area.
I've had an ongoing conversation with the business administrator about the possibility of lease purchase every time we talk about a new system or a major outlay. And it's an open discussion. I mean, we haven't come to any conclusion as far as how far do we have to get out in terms of spending before we start to consider that the strongest possibility. So we're still talking about it.
I'd love to hear some of those options the next time around, if that's possible.
So I have two questions, I guess, moving forward. The first thing is we've got the current year budget, which has already been struck, but we have money that is, that we can allocate to technology purchases. So from your perspective, in the current year, what are the things that we most need to look at as a board in terms of purchasing? What kinds of things would you recommend to the administration? The second piece of it would be, the idea of looking at this as a year-over-year cycle is obviously the right idea. We should be thinking about the 15-16 school year as we discuss this in the technology committee. So thinking about that as a 1 year, current year, and maybe a 1 to 2 year plan, current and subsequent year, where do you think the highlights really are?
Well, I think getting your teachers a little bit more updated than they presently are, I think that's an important step, because if they don't have the right tools to do what they need to do, then they're pretty much stuck with what they have. And there'll be no advancement. There'll be nobody saying, well, I need an interactive whiteboard because I have all these marvelous presentations on my laptop. As far as other things, replacement of any other older network hardware would behoove the district at any given point in time.
Okay, so maybe you could take a look at those things and then kind of work up sort of an option A, option B, option C, and so that you've got input from the principals on that. You've got a good sense of where we are, what we need, and we could take a look at this year the kinds of things that we can do for the district. I know we had discussed things like laptops for every teacher as being a possibility for the current school year. Mm-hmm. If that's in your estimation the best thing for us to do moving forward, then we can certainly look at that. If it's a question of more the network hardware side of it, we can look at that as well. But I think the board doesn't have the expertise to make those decisions on its own. So the input that you can provide on that, I think, to the central office administration would be key. And I would like to see that probably within the next 2 weeks or so, if you could sketch some of those things out.
Sure.
So that we have some more information, perhaps even by the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
And am I remembering correctly that last year we did a teacher survey on technology? Did we?
I don't know.
I think we did.
I don't remember.
I think we did. Yeah, in the middle, and maybe we can go back and take a look at that too, and make sure we're incorporating any of that feedback that we got from the teachers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Greg, you good?
Actually, can we get a copy of that for the next meeting? Can we dig that up?
The results of the survey that was done? Do you remember when that was done? It was done in the late spring.
I want to say late April. Kim Crane was the one who got up and spoke about the results.
Right.
There was something done separately by the HPU.
Okay, anybody else? All right, thank you very much, Brian.
You're welcome.
Is Mary here? No, right? Okay. All right, we'll skip that. Mr. Shlala.
I'm a Mac person, so I needed help. Thank you for inviting me tonight. Normally when a special ed person gets invited to a board meeting, it's either to be lunch or have lunch. So I'm grateful to not be lunch this evening. There were some questions I know raised at an earlier board meeting regarding our English language services. Hopefully, I'll respond to a number of the questions that were raised, I think it was 2 or 3 meetings ago. And if I miss anything, I'm sure I'll be reminded. Before I begin, I just want to comment on the fact that English language services are extremely important to me. It's not a stepchild to what we do in the department. I spent the last 2 years as a superintendent principal of a very small district in Hudson County where 90% of my children were Hispanic, and most of them were bilingual. And even after our bilingual and ESL programs got them up to more or less speed, they were still going home to homes that were primarily foreign language speaking. So to me, this is a commitment we make to our children, to bring them along, to get them where we need them to be. Let me just tell you some of the stuff that's going on. This all began because the district made a commitment to what's called sheltered instruction. There are different models of English language instruction. This is one of them. Each of them has their pros and their cons. This one, without going through that whole definition, approaches English language instruction as something that primarily takes place in the classroom. It is not just in language literacy, but across the content areas. And teachers are taught how to teach to foreign language speaking students. Simple things like not using contractions that we would find easy to understand, but the language learner may not. One of the questions was, how are students selected and exited? The law requires, federal and state, multiple criteria. There is a test called the Access, which is part of a network of districts around the country, and that test is used as a base for inclusion and for exiting, but only a base. There must be multiple measures. Teacher input, other objective data. It's easier to have the other objective data when determining exit, because you may have statewide assessment, you have report card grades, but you always have to have multiple data to determine a child's inclusion. One of the questions was staffing. We have one full-time ESL teacher at Irving and one teacher who's shared. That teacher is shared over at the high school. At Bartle, we have one full-time ESL teacher and one shared teacher. That shared teacher is the Spanish teacher. And at the middle, we have one shared teacher, and at the the middle one is the one who goes to Irving. And at the high school, we have one full-time teacher. That's our ESL staff. But remember, with sheltered instruction, the staff increases to include the classroom teachers. Students served. Now, we're showing 15 students in kindergarten, but their eligibility has not yet been determined. They are children who have been identified as potentially English language learners. In first grade, we have 7 students, and as you can see, at Bartle, we have 12, 6, 7, and 7. The middle school, we have a combination of 10 because children sometimes are grouped across the grades, and at the high school, we have 6 students. The ratios. In first grade, it's 7 in a class of 20. That class is purposely kept low. In second, it's 12 out of 21. In third, 6 out of 21. In fourth, 7 and 21. And in fifth, 7 and 21. One of the problems is how we distribute that. And I will discuss that on the last slide, which is, believe it or not, this one. Looking ahead. I just wanted to answer your questions. There's an overarching problem that I feel an obligation to mention. It's a problem I've encountered not just in ELL, but in a number of areas. And I want to be very clear that this is a problem not of recent vintage, but seems to be historic. Someone has a brilliant idea, or at least a really good one, and it's discussed among a couple of people. And then somebody says, wow, let's do it. But the problem with the wow, let's do it, is those couple of people don't go beyond themselves. They don't include building principals. They don't include staff members. They don't deal with the bits and pieces of the plan, which means those bits and pieces throw themselves up in people's faces as you're beginning to implement. That is an historic problem. And for whatever little time I have with you, it is a problem we are going to confront, at least in Ed Services. We need to look at programs like this and say, and that's part of this whole review, what does the plan need to be successful? What are the resources? What is the impact on budget? Because we know we deal with the limited universe of dollars. And that's just a reality we all face. For example, I'll give you this training. There is a training next week on sheltered instruction. This is not to damn anyone, and certainly nobody who's here. Principals don't know who the staff are that should be trained. The training's been given 3 or 4 days before school starts. How effective is that going to be? We ought to have begun training last year to implement the program successfully. We've had the same problem with the community-based instruction to the high school. Wonderful idea. Except we've been dealing with resolving issues around it since I came on board. So we need to look at our resources. Should we be continuing to do push in and pull out? Sheltered instruction suggests that except for the most significant children, our program should be primarily push in. And I will say from my experience with my 90% foreign speaking, push in works a lot better than pull out. Why? Because you need to have the children exposed to English language speakers. That leads to another problem. We put all our children into a single classroom at a grade level. Research suggests that they will gravitate to the children who share the same cultural values and background, not to that broader group of children we want them exposed to. So we have to look at these. We have to look at them. We're committed now. The program, the concept is good, but we have to look at how do we make it effective for our children. And, you know, if I were a teacher, I'd probably be concerned too. If I had a class with 12 out of 21 children who are English language learners, and if that was a tested grade on statewide assessment, I'd be quite concerned about how that was going to impact my scores. So there were issues here. I came to give you your basic answers, but as someone who's been doing this for a long time, in terms of program planning, we have things we need to do. And what I hope is, it's going to put a push on our department, but I'm hoping that we'll approach all of these issues, like next year's community-based instruction, like this language learning, like how we distribute special ed kids. I'm hoping we'll do that before we get to budget time, because there are going to be decisions that have to be made. We may not be able to do all the things we want to do. That's the truth about we're all kind of one piece of the same pie. But we can get there, and we can have a stronger program. I truly believe that, as long as we keep in mind, and it may sound trite to you, but it's something I've tried to build my career on, and certainly when I was with the kids the last 2 years. It's about the children. That's all it can ever be about. The minute it becomes about anything else, we've lost our way. So, I hope you don't regret asking me here this evening. But I guess I'm not lunch. I don't know if there's any questions anybody would like to ask.
Okay, so the staffing issue, right now there's a class of 12 out of 21 students in second grade? Okay.
I learned how to go backwards.
Good. Okay.
And second grade.
Okay, in terms of the current staff that's employed at Bartle School, what would your recommendation be in terms of 12 out of 21 students, more than half of the students in a class, doesn't seem right. The other classes are, you know,
well, for this year, we're going to have to do a lot of pushing to support that classroom, and that's exactly what we'll do. I think long term, you're going to look at push-in as the way to do it more than not. Not to say there won't be some pull-out across the board. We just happen to have, that's an anomaly. I mean, if you look at your numbers, that 12 is an anomaly. But for the sheltered instruction program to work, unfortunately, because of the training and everything, it's the only way to go. You know, unless, and it's kind of a late date to flip these kids out.
To separate it into two sections.
At least I think so, and I could be wrong about that. But it's something we're going to have to really keep a close eye on.
And in terms of ongoing training, what kinds of, how often would you like to see training occur with the teachers that are involved in this?
You know, it's kind of like stepping into a place I shouldn't step into. It's kind of like what you refer to as collaborative teaching. Other people call team teaching. The training has to be ongoing. I would probably, if I were structuring it for both sheltered instruction and team teaching, I would probably want to set up teaching training ongoing during the year. You want to introduce people to the concepts. You want them to live with it just a little bit, and then you want to bring them in to discuss it, and then help refine them with their training. You can't do it so much with BSL, but with teaching teams, it's always best if you get people who want to work together, rather than, which I've seen in other districts, they just get assigned, and every year it changes. If you establish a real team teaching approach, if you establish real team teaching, these kids could be spread, because the team teachers will take care of it. But again, it's the training, it's the commitment, whether we're doing it in-house or we're sending them out. I have a prejudice, and I admit it. I will spare no dollar in sending teachers out for in-service and workshops and training because of what they can bring back. I hear silence.
I personally just want to thank you very much for your candor and your frankness.
That's a great thing about being an interim.
The first question that rises in my mind is this so we're looking at actual classrooms. So there is a first grade teacher that's assigned this class. There is a second grade teacher. Have those individual teachers been given specific training and instruction?
That's what next week is about. Next week, one of the in-service days has an all day, I believe it is, workshop for the teachers who will be involved in it. I'm guessing at this point, well, just that number plus the ESL teachers. Right. So it's a small group which can make the training intensive. But again, had I done this, had somebody come up to me and said, we want to look at sheltered workshop, instruction, sheltered workshop, gets my special ed background. Sheltered instruction, I would have been discussing it last September, October. Right. I would have come to the board at that point in time through the superintendent, said, here's where we want to go, and I would have been plotting out, well, I would have done several things. The principals would have been involved in all my discussion, because it's in their buildings. We would have identified the best classes and teachers, and then we would have had set up training over the course of the year, so when they're walking in September, right, they feel confident about what it is we're asking them to do.
Right.
Because we're holding them accountable. Well, if I'm going to hold somebody accountable, then I have an obligation to make sure they have the tools.
Right. Right. I mean, I think you raised so many fantastic issues, including the teacher evaluation piece, how this impacts these particular teachers moving forward to all of a sudden get dropped this class with a much different demographic than the other classrooms. I've got twin third graders. I've kind of been alerted through, or not alerted, but made aware through the grapevine that my daughter will be in the third grade sheltered instruction class. So I will have a first row seat for how this plays out this year, and I'm very interested to see how it plays out, and I hope it plays out well for our ELL students and for our general ed students. But I concur with you. I wish we had had a year lead up to this, so all of these I's were dotted, T's were crossed, questions were answered, and we were all moving into this feeling confident and that we were making the right choice for all of our kids.
The ideal is that no parent knows or believes that their child's class is for this group of kids,
right,
or that group of kids. The ideal is that everybody is walking into the same situation. And by the way, as a general thing, from what I know about your district, you have the resources, particularly in terms of staff. From what I gather, a very competent staff. How we deploy them may be an issue, but that's beyond the pale of what I do, at least in this district.
So let me ask the question then. In terms of the distribution of the staff that's currently at Irving and Bartle and the middle school, there's a full-time ESL staff member at Irving and a shared time
because of the kindergarten numbers, we needed to bring somebody down. And we had a lighter load at middle, which allowed us to bring somebody down.
So there's full-time at Irving and Bartle, and then
Yes.
shared at Irving and Bartle. They
Now, the second person at Bartle is there all the time, I
Right.
guess, because they're doing Spanish. Unless they're shared with Irving, I'm not sure. No, they're not. So they're doing Spanish part of the time, and they're doing ESL part of the time.
And how much, I'm sorry, Ashley, how much pull-out ESL is being done in Irving and Bartle?
Well, I don't think, schedules haven't been set up for that yet, I don't believe.
Right.
But if you were to ask me the way to do it, if I had 7 first graders and we'll say all 15 kindergartners, the 7, probably 2, maybe 3 need to come out. So they come out a couple of times a week. But in class should be pushed in every day.
Are those 15 kindergartners all going to be in one class?
Those 15 kindergartners haven't been determined as eligible
Okay.
yet, so this is probably spread. But when you have the numbers, I believe, at Irving and Bartle to allow a daily push-in, and that works a lot better for all support services. When I began 2 years ago in my old district, we had 1 basic skills instructor, and my scores are horrible. Primarily because of language needs. We've fiddled with money and got 4 basic skills instructors, and basic skills instructors go into every classroom every day. That's what your support people need to be doing. They need to be getting in on a daily basis. If they need to identify kids who need to come out, then we give them the power to make that identification. They're the professional working with the kids.
It sounds to me like, it sounds to me like we could be allocating the staff resources a little bit better, given the amount of pullout that there is. It seems like there should be enough availability if, let's say, the Irving and Bartle principals are talking to each other to provide that kind of service, which would then give those teachers, the gen ed teachers, ongoing support for the sheltered instruction.
And we've been, the 2 principals and myself have been talking quite a bit. And while part of my head, the major part of my head, as scary as it is looking forward, a part of it says if we need to make adjustments, October, November, we'll make those adjustments based on our actual experience.
I was actually just going to say the same thing, in terms of not to make you lunch, which probably could, but if we
Don't worry, the time will come.
If we have the resources, how would you reallocate them? But it sounds like you're having those discussions, and I won't put you on the spot now. So
I think that's going to take time. I have some ideas in my head, and at least in the special ed arena, I can hopefully engage conversation with all the key players. I have ideas about it district, but that's not my domain. But I think the key is the conversation includes all the players. It includes all the principals. It includes, well, in special ed, the child study team. It includes the board. It includes presenting to the community. It includes the teachers. There are different pieces of everything you want to put into place, maybe not the totality, that demand input from various audiences. If I do this, what do you think? And nothing's lost by doing that. I always say to teachers I work with, tell me what you need. I may not be able to do it, but I got to hear it. And I think in some of these things, that's what we needed to do. And again, I'm only focusing on a couple of things that are special ed specific. But I have a hunch that you can extrapolate throughout the district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Greg, questions? Thank you very much.
We need Ryan to come over.
Mr. Benjamin. I don't think so.
Sure.
No, it's us.
We got a nice crowd here, huh? Hey, everybody. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Benjamin. I am the proud new principal of Bartle Elementary. I'd like... There you go. I'd like to first start by formally thanking members of the board and members of the interview selection committee for selecting me as your new principal. I really appreciate that, and I'm here to serve the students of Bartle. I'm here this evening to respond to an essential question raised regarding maintaining the integrity of the visual arts program at Bartle. Please know that I believe that the arts are integral to educating and growing the whole child. I have always and will continue to support the arts in public education, especially at Bartle. Bartle has a tremendous art program led by none other than Ms. Crane. As a supporter of the arts and the phenomenal work that Ms. Crane does, please be aware that there will be absolutely no art on the cart at Bartle for this year or any year that I am humbly allowed to serve as your principal. Please know that the part-time art teacher that is needed to cover the additional classes at both Bartle and Irving will in fact have her own classroom at both schools. Moreover, Assistant Superintendent Israel Soto, Ms. Crane, and myself are working diligently on a schedule to try and ensure maximum use of the kiln while maintaining the integrity of the enrichment aspect of the total visual arts program. We are looking to provide additional information within the next couple of days, roughly Wednesday, Thursday, regarding the schedule, use, and engagement of the kiln. So please, I ask the board to anticipate a response from Assistant Superintendent Soto with regard to the scheduled use of the kiln. But I can assure you there will be no art on the cart as long as I'm here at Bartle. And I'm open for questions.
Did I hear this correctly that there's going to be a second room set up?
Room 222.
So there's actually going to be 2 art rooms?
Yes. Obviously, the second art room won't have all the facilities and the amenities, but just making sure that the new art teacher, Ms. Iglesias, hopefully approved, will actually have all the essentials. Ms. Crane and I talked about her being the new art teacher's mentor, as well as being able to provide additional supplies and so forth to help her to get her up and started to make sure that the program is comparable and equal across the board.
So will the students rotate through both classrooms, or will some students, so I guess some students will just have the secondary classroom and some will have the primary classroom?
Yes.
Okay, but we haven't figured out how that's going to, what
still,
grade levels
we're still
whatever.
Working on that right
Because I would
now.
think certain grade levels have the ceramics and need to have that as
absolutely.
part of their curriculum, so that those grades would be in the primary room. And
we're working on that right now.
Okay, fantastic. And personally, I'd love to hear more information about that too. Which classes will be, which grades will be in what classroom with what teacher, and what impact that would have on the curriculum for any particular grade, if any.
Absolutely.
If we would anticipate that the curriculum would have to be changed because some students would be in that secondary art classroom.
Absolutely, especially making sure that we get that 4th and 5th grade enrichment going on, because that's really a critical part, especially the use of the kiln.
Yeah, I mean, my 3rd graders I know are just, that art room is their little sanctuary. Apparently there's some animal in there I didn't know about that's like a mascot, and there's all this stuff. So I personally, I'd be curious to know which classes are going to be where.
Absolutely. So we're going to work to get our part-time art teacher up and running so that she can get that room together so all the kids can experience art on an equal level.
Great, thank you.
All right.
Questions? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
If you could just stick around for a few minutes, just in case there are questions that we might not be able to answer. I just wanted to sort of address the idea that we've got, we've had some experts talk about some things that they're doing in the district, and I think the board's definitely interested in making this a new part of our process in terms of the updates that are given, having the folks that are actually doing the work on the ground level. One person does not hold all the knowledge, certainly, and so hearing from the experts, I really appreciate it. So thank you. Okay, Ashley, could we have the curriculum committee report?
The curriculum committee actually did not meet this. The curriculum committee did not meet this evening. No report.
Okay. On the agenda, there are some additional hours for curriculum writing and some textbook adoptions, which were discussed, I think, even in the fall or the winter, and then a couple of course changes and a couple of other minor things.
I was curious about those textbooks and how those are worked into the new curriculum and what specifically those textbooks are, in particular for K through 3.
Yeah, the K3. I mean, this was selected, I think, in January, February.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, February. I think
Right.
in the February meeting it came up for discussion in the
Yeah.
curriculum meeting.
We can certainly have Kelly talk about kind of the new, what's going to be happening at the elementary school. And once Mr. Benjamin starts, is familiar with Reading Street and how that's going to work out, we could certainly have an update on how those classes are going to be run.
So these are specific, are these kind of like more, I mean, I'm assuming that they're more curriculum tools than just textbooks. Am I right? I mean, are they kind of like more like full program kind of things, or?
They're more like full program kinds of things, yes.
These are my high-tech
As not an
words.
elementary teacher, I'm not,
Right, from the February meeting, and I believe there was a presentation. I may be incorrect. It may have just been in a committee meeting that they were part of a package. I've forgotten the exact terminology. I'll go back to the notes, but
Yeah.
they were part of a complete package that supported the curriculum.
And the full curriculum has been written with the exception of these two courses that are being approved for additional hours. The full curriculum was sent to the board. The curriculum committee will review the curriculum prior to the next board meeting, and then we can actually approve the curriculum. So if you want to, in the next 2 weeks, you can take a look at what was sent. This was the draft curriculum. The curriculum committee will be discussing any questions or issues that you have. So if anything comes up that you see that's, a concern or whatever, or, you just want to ask a question, feel free to do so to the curriculum committee. And then we'll talk about that prior to the next board meeting. Okay. Finance.
The Finance Committee did not meet this evening. Most of the items are fairly standard. There's the purchase of some kitchen equipment for the high school cafeteria. There's a change order associated with the Bartle School window replacement project. That's item 12. The removal of poison ivy seems to be pretty important. And there are a couple of items on the addendum. The purchase of Promethean boards that Brian spoke about. And item 20, do you want to talk about item 20?
Yes, item 20. Item 20 represents the appointment of a new board attorney. The board attorney that was previously used as our general counsel from Schwartz, Simon, Edelstein left his firm and started his own firm, which is going to be based out of Metuchen instead of out of Whippany. The board has found him to be extraordinarily responsive in the last 6 months that he's worked with us, and he's also reduced the rate that the board will be paying for general counsel services. So item 20 is the appointment of him as the general counsel. That, of course, leaves Schwartz, Simon, Edelstein, and Celso as our counsel for negotiations and for special education for the time being. This motion, just with as with the Schwartz-Simon motion, ends June 30th, 2015. It's terminable at any time, so if we find out that the services being offered by Jonathan Bush are not up to par as when he was with the firm, we can certainly look at changing that. But he's been excellent so far, and we're very excited that he's moved out on his own, and we welcome the opportunity to continue to work with him. Anything else? Okay, Greg.
All right. The Personnel Committee did meet this evening. We had the lovely privilege of being able to kick the board out of executive session so that we could have our personnel meeting. So in any case, we discussed a number of transfers, a number of resignations, and quite a few appointments of staff this evening, all of which are obviously sort of related to the mad rush towards the beginning of the school year. I think it's probably appropriate for me to talk about the corrections to the agenda right now so people know what right? We'll talk about that now?
Yep.
So for item number 2, I'd like to correct item number 2. The correction should be teacher of English, middle school, and no grade should be specified. In the agenda, 8th grade is specified, and we need to remove that. We are not going to be moving item number 11 on the agenda. So that is the interim principal for Mr. Sarcone. Instead, there is an item on our addendum where we're going to be appointing interim principal, or moving, I should say, to appoint interim principal Donna Maloof Collimore. I hope that's how you pronounce her name. Correction to item number 19. Boys spring track assistant should be Corey Carter and not Nicholas Casapidis. Apologize. Item number 25, Cheryl Magaziner hours should not be listed as 60. They should be listed as 80. And item number 28, Bernice Kaslovich. Boy, I'm really beating up people's names tonight. I apologize. Should be on the list of after-school program assistant at $16.25 per hour. That's my report.
Okay, and just a couple of things for me to comment on here. Obviously, item 36 is great. We'll be having, we'll have a middle school principal appointed. I believe she's actually going to start tomorrow to work with the administration, but she will be working as of September 1st. And of course, it gives us the great pleasure to be able to appoint Israel Soto as the interim superintendent beginning September 1st through the end of December at least. Israel's done a great job here so far, and we're very excited to have him at the helm to try to bring some order and some reason back into what we're doing here. So we're very excited for Israel. There's no Adam and there's no policies, so we'll skip that. And so, with that, Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. I'd like to make a motion to limit public comments to 4 minutes each.
Second.
Linda, could we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Aversa?
Yes.
Ms. Bull?
Yes.
Ms. Cimarosti? No. Mr. Dietz?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Warden?
Yes.
Seeing it as there's no public comment, we can move to, oh, sorry, okay. Please state your name and your address and sign in with your full name and address as well.
Hi, my name's Allison Salerno. I live on Grant Avenue. I actually have 2 areas I wanted to ask about, and we'll see if it fits in the time frame. The first thing I wanted to ask about was to ask the board for an update on what's going on with benchmarks. It was a little unclear what was going on with benchmarks. I think Mr. Ross, or you might have said you were going to get clarity on that. How many benchmarks are the children going to have? Are they curricular-based, or are they exclusively skill-based? I know we taxpayers paid for teachers to be trained, or not to be trained, to do the benchmarks, to write the benchmarks. And we also paid for professional development. And I just wanted an update on what the students can expect and the parents can expect this fall in terms of benchmarks.
Can you speak to any of that, Mike? What's going on?
I can assure you that the benchmarks have been written by the teachers, and they have tried to collaborate with the teachers that were available. The number of benchmarks, I would say at this point, is not set. We will take that under further discussion once the teachers are back and we can actually talk about implementation. But all the teachers have to implement their SGOs.
Right.
And so they're going to have a baseline. They're going to have a checkpoint. They're going to have something to measure the students' progress for the year.
In addition to the SGOs?
No, benchmarks can often be used in conjunction with the SGOs. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel, that these things should be used in conjunction with the SGOs so that the students are not over-tested.
Okay, that's good to hear. And my understanding, I could be wrong, is that these benchmarks were set to start in kindergarten? Is that the expectation? Do you know? Anybody know?
I don't remember offhand.
Okay, because that would be helpful for people to know how often the kids are going to be tested and starting at what grade level. That would be helpful information.
Sure.
The other thing, I'm wondering, I was hoping for a tech plan, and I didn't hear a tech plan. Maybe my expectations were unrealistic. What I heard was a purchasing plan. Perhaps there's something wasn't shared with us about the philosophy and how tech is going to be integrated into our curricular goals. But I kind of just heard like, this is out of date, we're going to buy this is out of date, we're going to buy that. But I'm looking for something more strategic. Is there something more strategic?
Yeah, so I think, what you heard was absolutely a tech presentation given by someone who knows about technology.
Right.
Did not contain any of the curricular aspects.
Right.
With that in mind, the board has a better sense of the kinds of technology that's needed, but obviously that conversation needs to be had in conjunction with the principals and the teachers, which is why we said in 2 weeks or so, we'll try to have that information shared with the central office administration. There can be some further discussion about where we want to go in terms of the curricular implementation of the technology, the kinds of training that will be given for things like smart boards and document cameras, which are not necessarily the easiest thing sort of to use, plug and play. But it's absolutely right.
Okay. And what kind of grant money, are we seeking to pay for this ongoing need for technology? Other districts have been able to secure federal and state grants for technology. What are we doing about that?
Do we have access to grant money for technology purchases?
We don't have any at this time. I'm not the person who looks for grants. I manage the grants.
Right.
To get them.
I appreciate that.
So I'm sure that, on the curricular side, they're seeking out some grants. I'm not sure, though.
Yeah. I can speak to what the middle school was able to accomplish.
Okay.
Now that it is whole school and our Title I can actually be used for the entire school, our technology, particularly the smart boards, is completely purchased out of Title I funds.
Okay, that's awesome.
So that's not coming from the district taxpayers, that's coming straight from the government.
That's good to know.
And we will continue that whole school status going forward, and any monies that we deem appropriate in the middle school level can then be used additionally to purchase needed technology that the teachers identify.
That's good to know. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can make one further comment. The federal government, the Federal Division of Schools and Libraries offers a program called E-Rate, and we are participating in the E-Rate funding. We receive about a 50% discount on the cost for the broadband, the connectivity. It doesn't apply to hardware because we're not a high enough percentage of low and free and reduced children.
Right.
Districts that have higher poverty levels do receive funding for hardware, but we are receiving the funding at about a 50 to 55% discount level for the more infrastructure delivery of service like broadband, that type of thing.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Allison.
Hi, my name's Karen Bilton. and I wanted to talk about something I had emailed about. Myself and several other parents I know are upset about the changes to the before and after school scheduling. Myself and others I know have regularly used the option for 1, 2, and 4 days a week. And with the changes that have been put in place, now parents have to choose only 3 days or 5 days. And with these new limitations, you're basically forcing parents to pay for childcare that they don't need. And more importantly, you're forcing the children to be in the care of others when they could be with their parents after school. The parents are paying for it, they're more likely to use it. So the two questions I have are, why were these changes made? And is there any consideration to change it back?
Yeah, so we got your email, and I appreciate you for the fact that you brought it up to us. I spoke with Mr. Soto about why these changes were made, and he's not really sure why they were made. If he needs to speak with the building principals that really are involved with the before school and after school programs, and decide whether there was some rationale for this. If there was, which I don't think, frankly, any of us can really see, then we'll certainly be happy to explain that. But in the event that there isn't, then we will certainly work to try to go back to a per diem kind of more flexible arrangement.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Tara Canavera, 361C Crowes Road. First of all, this wasn't part of my comment, but I'd like to say this summer I got to work very closely with our interim director of special ed, and he has been very fair and very excellent so far. We're still watching you, but so far, he's been very good. But the real reason I wanted to speak to you today is our lack of an opt-out policy, especially involving special ed children. I have a child who's in special ed who luckily was at a district because I opted her out of the biology test. If she would have had to sit in a classroom and do nothing, Mr. Lassiter could attest to that, it would not have gone well at all. And there are other children with more severe needs than my child who just can't sit in a classroom. So if you're not going to have a policy to opt out, generally, you need to at least address one for special ed parents. My daughter was at the VOTEC. They made accommodations. It worked well. So at least for special ed, please do something. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Virginia Lofton, South 2nd Avenue. My son is entering 9th grade in September, and he had required reading for English class, and there are 2 books that he had to read before school starts. One is, I guess, all kids entering honors English have to read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, and then there was a list of books that he could choose from. I question the choice of the Maya Angelou book. After he read it, we had a lot of discussion and then I read it myself. There were graphic descriptions of the sexual abuse and rape of an 8-year-old child, and then the emotional dilemma of this child going back to the rapist for comfort, and then the 16-year-old Maya ending the book by getting pregnant after she propositions a teenage boy. So I'm not sure why this book was selected, maybe because of the recent death of Maya Angelou, or actually I'm not sure why. There are a lot of themes in the book that were good for discussion. We discussed it quite a lot. However, I'm not sure that every 14-year-old kid is maybe prepared for those graphic discussions and descriptions of that kind of abuse. And I can tell you my 14-year-old kid didn't fully grasp the types of things that were going on. So I would never consider banning a book. However, maybe certain books are not appropriate for younger kids. And I also want to say that the list of books that were available to the kids to choose were of no interest to my son. And some of these books are not young adult books. They're books by authors like Jodi Picoult, they're just of no interest to a 14-year-old boy. Themes like drunk driving and kids being killed, he's not interested. It's just not. I'm just wondering how we can maybe select books that would excite a love of reading in some kids, and maybe review some of these lists of books, or I'd love to hear why they were selected, but specifically that one, after reading it myself. So.
Okay, thank you. And I think, Mr. Lassiter, if you could look into that for us, just as part of the kind of auditing process that we do. Thank you.
Melissa Newman, 215 Montgomery Street. I wanted to specifically talk about the double pickup between Irving and Bartle students. There's a half-an-hour period between the two schools getting out, and I know that's needed in order to accommodate the bus routes, because I think they share a bus, if I'm not mistaken on that. But parents only need 10 minutes to get from Bartle to Irving, which means they have a 20-minute wait, which is too small to go home and do something, but yet they're not allowed to just hang out in front of Irving, because then they cause traffic problems. So I'm proposing the idea that maybe Bartle should set up like a mini aftercare program that's maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes long, where the kids could hang out at the playground or in the gym or in the art room, just to shorten that time period between Bartle getting out and Irving kids having to be picked up. The second point I wanted to talk about was the smart boards. He did a great presentation, and I know there's a lot of positives to the smart board, but what he didn't mention was that they cost around $5,500 each for just buying it and installing it. That doesn't include maintenance of it. It doesn't include software. And as he said with the Chromebooks, they have a life cycle, so it doesn't take into account that these things will break and that they're going to have to be replaced. So that equals, probably like 15 Chromebooks for one smart board. And when we don't have laptops for the teacher, it kind of seems something that's not really needed in my view.
Melissa, we have the order was 11 smart boards for $25,000, so it was $2,300 for each smart board, as opposed to
$2,300 for a smart board?
Including the installation costs.
Okay, then I guess the figure I had was wrong. I just did a quick internet search.
No problem.
I think it also includes training.
Great.
What were you saying?
I know that includes the software that goes with it, and I'm pretty sure it includes training provided by the company for the teachers as well.
Maybe they sell it to a different price for teachers than, say, companies or something like that. Also, when he was saying the 3-year life cycle for the Chromebooks, I think that's more like a sales pitch of a life cycle, because I had read articles at one time that were saying because you don't have any actual software installed on the hard drive, that it's all internet-based and you're using Google and stuff, that the actual time frame, the maximum time frame that these computers can last is actually about 10 years. So say, for example, we did a one-to-one policy and we brought these Chromebooks for kids starting in 5th grade, it would last them potentially through high school, and then they just take it with it and can use it in college or replace it or whatever else. So I think you need to relook at what the sales pitch replacement is versus what could potentially, on average, if, say, for example, we assign an actual computer to a student where they might take more care of it versus this is the school's computer and I don't really care about this. Also, the other thing I wanted to talk about was safe routes for walking to school. On 5th Street, we have all the crossing guards going all the way down from Raritan to the school, and that makes a great safe route for when you're coming from the north side. when kids are coming from the south side, especially trying to cross 3rd Street, it's actually very dangerous. So I don't know if we want to look into something.
Third and
Third and, well, trying to cross 3rd Street at any point, because there's no real safe way for kids by themselves crossing 3rd Street, because there's a lot of traffic from people maybe trying to avoid the school traffic, or people driving down 3rd Street to then go up 4th Street. So.
Okay, yeah, we can certainly speak to them about that.
Yeah, and I've also just generally wondered, why are there no 4-way stop signs at all the corners by all the schools, including like by the library? Like, it never really makes logical sense to me why we have only one set of stop signs instead of all 4 ways in such a location where there's a lot of pedestrians. And that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Melanie McDermott, and I live at 330 South 3rd Avenue. And I just wanted to ask some clarification questions on the new admin structure with all the changes. So, so since Mr. Soto, last year, we started out with 1 superintendent, 2 assistant superintendents. Now Mr. Soto is going to be acting superintendent at least till December. So if I understood correctly, we will have no assistant superintendents for in the meanwhile. I know at the general, some recent board meeting, or maybe it was Dan's announcement, there's some arrangement has been made, or I know it was the savings. So just rather than me say it ham-fistedly, please reiterate what is happening to the curriculum position, and then what, if anything, is happening to the duties and responsibilities of the assistant superintendent that was Mr. Soto.
So the curriculum position, so the original structure that I mentioned at the last meeting was assuming that we had an interim superintendent and Mr. Soto as the assistant superintendent, or we had both positions, fully paid for superintendent and an interim assistant superintendent. I'm sorry, let me think about this again. An interim superintendent and Mr. Soto, that's right. So, so the dollar amount that was saved by not hiring a new curriculum person more than covers the expense of hiring an interim superintendent to replace Mr. Capone for the remainder of the year. That assumes that we're paying 2 people.
Right.
So with moving Mr. Soto up to the position of interim superintendent, that's, even more of a cost savings at this point. Obviously, the roles and responsibilities will have to be covered. And so we now have we will have 4 building principals who are able to manage their buildings. We also have curriculum and benchmarks that have been written by the teachers and are being implemented. The curriculum is being overseen by the building principals. And so then the question is, what are the roles of the assistant superintendent for the short term, right? This is not a position that we want to leave vacant forever, certainly.
Right.
There will be mechanical things, operations related things, curriculum related things that will be needed to be attended to by a supervisor. They will also have to determine how the evaluations are going to be worked out, and whether having one central office person with an administrative certificate in addition to everybody else is actually enough to complete all of the observations that are actually on people's plates. But the board has, sort of limitless options. We could go out and try to find an interim assistant superintendent for some amount of time. We could move Israel back to assistant superintendent after December 31st and hire a new interim superintendent. But I think that basically at this point, I don't get the feeling that there's a rush to install someone else in central office at this point. I think that the structures that have been set up are good structures, and the principals are going to be able to manage a lot of the things that are going on in their building. And when it comes time to, for us to have that conversation about where we want to add someone, we'll have a better sense of it, given the feedback from the principals and also from Mr. Soto as the interim superintendent.
So I think that anticipates then my next question, which was going to be, when is there going to be a search going out for an interim superintendent? But that may not happen at all. it may just be Mr. Soto, depending on how the first few months go, or at least the next little while goes?
Yeah, I mean, so presumably, so we don't really know what the fate of Israel is going to be. He could, not, we love the guy, so, not that kind of fate. But it may be the case that he is interested in staying on for the remainder of the year. It may be that the case that the board is interested in having him stay on for the remainder of the year, or there could be any other variation on that theme. The question of when the search for a permanent superintendent occurs, that's not going to happen in the fall, as far as I'm aware. I don't understand. I don't see the board wanting to push that at this time. Yeah. Certainly, with the folks that we've got in place now, with the transition into having the new building principals and having Mr. Soto in the central office, I think that we'll be able to manage very well at this time. And then I think that when the spring comes and there's some more time to spend 5-6 months on a process, the board may be interested at that time if the position of interim is not still filled. An interim superintendent can serve up to 2 years, and so it also might be the case that the board might be interested in hiring an interim who has 35 years of experience in 10 districts and can come in and really oversee things in a very, very good, positive manner, in which case that would preclude the idea of hiring a full-time superintendent, a permanent superintendent. But there are so many variations within that.
Yeah, but Mr. Soto still has a contract as our assistant superintendent, so we haven't.
Yes.
I mean, the day that he stops being interim superintendent, he goes back to being assistant superintendent. And the plan to have the building principals be the effective curriculum heads for the respective buildings is that's solid. We're not looking for a new assistant superintendent because those monies have been reallocated.
Correct.
Okay. And what is going to be the plan or the time frame for the middle school principal? Because you see you've got an interim. How long is her contract for, and what's the plan for replacing the middle school principal?
So the interim contract has no end date right now. It would be at most a position that would be filled until June 30th as an interim. Okay. No, sorry. There is a 200 days maximum, which is the school year plus a little bit, right? Yeah. There is some discussion about whether the person who's filling the interim position might at some point become a full-time middle school principal, because this is not the normal case of an interim, which is a retired person collecting a pension. Most interim positions are retired administrators who collect a pension from the state, and then there's a clause that allows them to then work and earn a per diem, not health benefits, but a per diem on top of the pension that they're earning. That is really the typical way that interims are hired. This is not the case for this individual, and so this is someone who's seeking permanent gainful employment. And so, if things work out well, then at some point during this year, there might be a change in that person's employment from interim to permanent, or the board would advertise for someone else at any point along that, because this is not a contract that has any particular, you must go to some date. The board would be able to terminate that contract, given some notice at any particular time if the need arises.
So there's no requirement to re-advertise the position. If she's a good fit, you could just make her the principal.
I would imagine that we probably would have to advertise again as a full-time assistant, full-time middle school principal.
But anyway, we have 200
If we had
days.
someone who was a great candidate, then that would be the person that we would want to hire.
Okay. And final just sort of question, have there been some reassignments of committee chairs within the board? So Ashley, you were reporting for the curriculum committee because Claire's not here, and that just, okay. All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Although, Dan, that does bring up one question for me. So normally for committees, the superintendent would meet with personnel, and I assume Michelle has been meeting with curriculum. So who's going to meet with curriculum?
It will be Israel, but we'll have to figure it out.
So we'll have to figure out a different schedule
meeting.
for committee. So Israel will do both.
Yep.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for being board members. Appreciate everything you do. Ellen Leibowitz, Grant Ave. Melanie asked a lot of the questions I was going to ask, so although I appreciate the additional minute, I won't use all the 4 minutes. I just wanted to say also that I appreciate having Mr. Lassiter here. It was concerning at several board meetings not to have any representative from central administration or a building principal here. And I think it, excuse me, it really makes a difference to have somebody available who can address those specific kinds of questions. It's really, really appreciated. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Ellen.
Hi, Judy Petrobono, 4th Avenue. I just have a follow-up question to Melanie's. When you were talking about the different responsibilities with the new, with Israel's new job, what's going to happen to the anti-bullying position? Because that was one of his responsibilities, I believe. So what would that fall under? Who would that fall under?
That's a very good question, and I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
Okay, you'll get back to us on
absolutely.
that?
It's a federal, state requirement, federal requirement. We'll have that information posted as per the statute.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dara Botvinnik, 348 Becker Street. I just wanted to kind of sum up and thank everyone for talking about benchmarking. I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to kind of understand for myself that now the benchmarking would be under the umbrella of the principal because they're in charge of curriculum now. And so, Mr. Lassiter, when you had said that it would incorporate the SGOs, I appreciated that. And I simply want us to, I guess, think about how many benchmarks still would be required, in general, and that it would be a discussion among staff and administration, and that it would take into consideration the fact that although Mr. Lassiter is correct that in an ideal world it would have correlated with the curriculum, and it did happen in part, it didn't happen in full. So I just, I think some benchmarks are going to be very useful and others might not be as useful, and I just look forward to a conversation throughout the year where staff and administration can work together so that we can fully implement the curriculum appropriately. And I just appreciate all the time that you guys have given me up here to express my concern for my curriculum and my class and my school and my community.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Thank you.
Definitely. And Dara, of course, share those concerns with your principal.
And I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dara. Is there any other public comment? Okay, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. Have a good night. Ashley, could we have the curriculum items?
Since you went through, sorry, I was anticipating going through them at this point, but right now you can just move them rather.
Just move them, yeah.
So I'd like to, for the curriculum instruction, I'd like to move items 1 through 9.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion on those items? Okay, Linda?
Ms. Aversa?
Yes.
Ms. Bull? Yes. Ms. Simorosti?
Yes.
Mr. Dietz?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Wharton?
Yes.
Catherine?
I move items 1 through 20.
Is there any discussion on those items?
May we have a second?
Jerry?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Can we just revisit the whiteboard or the smart board, I guess, whatever they're called, the interactive whiteboards?
There you go.
The justification for spending this, where are we finding the money for this again?
This is Title I. So
This is all
there's
Title I money. Okay.
So if you look at 19, it says to be funded by NCLB Title I grant funds. So correct me if I'm wrong, there was a waiver that was put into the state to allow Title Is to be used for the whole school.
I can speak to this
Yeah.
a little bit
Yeah, please do.
One of the things that we did as the school improvement team for the middle school is identify what technology the teachers felt was needed the most. And we asked all the teachers, and I got all that information. Time and time again, they requested smart boards. And so once we went whole school and could actually purchase it with the Title I funds that we had, again, they said, yeah, we should use the money for that. So this was a joint decision with the teachers in the community and our whole school improvement team.
Is there additional Title I funding that's not been allocated yet? That might be.
I can't speak to. I know that there's some Title I funding that's allocated to a certain thing. That I think Linda could probably
each
speak to
school
it better.
receives an allocation based upon the level of need, and much of the money is spent on the summer reading programs and the after-school like Dragon tutoring and the programs at the various schools for improving language arts literacy.
Right.
Also, the Read 180 teacher, at least part of her salary is funded through Title I.
In terms of the monies that are allocated as part of the whole school, the way that this was structured in the middle school, is there, as of yet, unallocated money?
This is a big chunk of what was allocated for the middle school. That and the partial salary of the Read 180 teacher at the middle school.
And the addition of the math remediation.
That's right.
teacher
That's
as
a new,
well.
another new.
And that's new for this
new
year,
thing.
and again, that came out of our school improvement team to have an additional math teacher to address the most needy students in regards to their math skills.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
I think you approved an appointment, Mr. Craig Zimmerman, who was interviewed this summer and is coming on board to address those students. They're small classes. We're making sure that they're not overmaxed. And they're actually scheduled in conjunction with the Read 180 program so that the students who might have needs in both areas can alternate. Students that have more of a need can attend the math, and so we have it structured. This is the initial year of it, and so we'll work out anything that needs to be adjusted after looking at the program for a little while. But
that's great. Are we using RTI in this district?
I'm sorry?
Are we using RTI?
That is also something that's coming in this district for the first time this year.
Okay.
And that's response to intervention for those that didn't catch that.
Great. Any other discussion on the finance items?
I just wanted to say on 20, when we first hired Simon Schwartz, I was a little apprehensive, I have to say, and that I've really enjoyed getting to know Jonathan. I think he's done a really good job for the district and for the board members, and I congratulate him on his new firm, and I'm really excited to be able to approve him tonight.
Great. Me too. With that, Linda?
Ms. Aversa?
Yes.
Ms. Bull?
Yes.
Ms. Cimarosti?
Yes.
Mr. Dietz?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Wharton?
Yes, but I need to abstain on item 16.
Sorry. Greg?
I'd like to move items 1 through 10, and then items 12 through 29 on the main paper, and 30 through 36 on the addendum.
Is there a second?
Second?
And that's with all the corrections that were read in?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion of any of the personnel items?
I just wanted to say that I really appreciated it to get to sit with Mike tonight, and I got to ask every question I had about every transfer, appointment, whatever the questions were. And between Mike and Dan, they were able to answer all of them, and I feel very comfortable with all the items. So I appreciate both of your help there.
Great.
My pleasure.
Any other discussion? Linda?
Ms. Aversa?
Yes.
Ms. Bull?
Yes.
Ms. Cimarosti?
Yes.
Mr. Dietz?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Wharton?
Yes.
There's no policies to be moved. So for the President's report, at the last meeting, we approved the mutual separation between the board and Tim Capone, and at this meeting, we approved Israel Soto to take over the leadership role as the district as interim superintendent. We are all very excited to have Israel on board at this time, as he has shown a tremendous amount of positive energy during his time here, has worked well with staff, has been responsive to parents, and has demonstrated that he has truly the best interest of students in mind. Those of you who have met Israel know that he is a very compassionate and understanding person and administrator, and we're looking forward to him taking the helm as the new year gets underway. Israel will be with us at board meetings beginning on September 8th. Following our last meeting, the Board Negotiations Committee sat down with representatives from the HPEA and worked through a number of issues before settling on an agreement that lasts through June 2016. The agreement must still be ratified by the full HPEA and approved by the board, but I'm confident that this is yet another positive step forward in building a united front through which we can best serve our students. I want to especially thank the leadership of the HPEA for the open and active approach taken during last week's meeting and for continuing to work through different aspects of the contract deep into the night. The board is also looking forward to the positive effect that the new building leadership will bring to the staff and the students at each level. We as a board are pushing these administrators to provide regular updates to the community about exciting things that are happening in their schools and also to provide clarity in the decisions that are being made at the building level. Ms. Wisniewski, Mr. Benjamin, Ms. Maloof, and Mr. Lassiter will be brought into board meetings where appropriate to discuss items of general interest or to explain the rationale behind certain decisions that were made. If you have a concern that is particular to one building or grade level, please reach out to the appropriate building principal, and he or she will address your concerns in a timely manner. As always, if you as a community member have questions or concerns about things, please email the board, and we can direct your concern to the appropriate channel. Thank you, as always, and we're looking forward to school beginning in a few weeks. Is there any old business? Yes, as I answer my own question. The board goals are up for discussion, and today we have the opportunity to approve the board goals. And so you've all read through the board goals, and maybe we can start with questions or comments about the board goals that any of you might have. Are the board goals on the agendas that were printed? Yeah. The new proposed board goals, or no? It's an attachment? Okay.
I just have a technical thing. On goal 2, the second bullet, it doesn't follow, we need a verb in the beginning, because it doesn't, I mean, we start off with to achieve this, we will, colon, and then it says all schools throughout the district will create. So we will promote.
We could just say create professional learning communities and SLTs at each school. So strike through the first 6 words and start it out with create. Okay, so any other quick things?
Provide training on uniform benchmarking is sounding very static right now. It sounds like we've had a lot of conversation about benchmarking. We're talking about benchmarking being more of a fluid conversation between teachers and building administration.
Yeah, I don't know. So this doesn't say, I think, what it means to say, which is providing training for staff on how to create benchmark assessments that are given, uniform benchmark assessments that are given by all staff members at a particular grade level or a course or something like that. I think that's sort of the descriptive way of saying what I think this means to say.
So maybe we need to flesh that one out a little bit?
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, I liked the way that Allison and Dara were kind of framing it to make sure that the benchmarking was something that was inclusive of the curriculum, that we weren't just creating this other set of tests to be this other set of tests, that we're making sure that any benchmarking that we're doing is inclusive of the content of the class that it's given in, generally.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we could just scrap the third bullet and put it into the first bullet. Offer staff development that is aligned with district initiatives and content knowledge requirements, such as, or including, or something like that. Is that, I mean, it doesn't necessarily, I mean, it is a district initiative and it is a content knowledge requirement.
But are we really saying that we're going to have benchmarking in each and every class? I mean, is that what we're saying?
Well, it doesn't say that, though. It says offer staff development that is aligned with it. So if there's one section of film studies, we don't necessarily need benchmarking, but
Right.
you know, in a 4th grade ELA class, you should have benchmarking so that you can really see student performance across a grade level.
If you can think of some fancy way to word it in there, go ahead, my friend.
Should we just say such as? Such as benchmarking? What else?
Including but not limited to benchmark.
What other kinds of things, Mr. Lassiter, might we put in there in addition to benchmarking?
You're talking about the first bullet?
Yep. Or do we even need to sort of denote each kind of thing, or just?
I wouldn't. Why not just say provide training on benchmarking without the word uniform? I think that tying that together is what ends up.
Well, but I hear what Dan's saying, that the first bullet is talking about staff development, so, and then we're talking about training and the third bullet, so I see the point of just kind of merging them together, but then we run the risk of like some laundry list, unless there is like 2 or 3.
There's a difference between offering and providing. The benchmarking you need to provide.
Right, okay.
The other staff developments can be offered with some choice involved.
Okay.
Everyone needs to be able to be up to par on whatever benchmarking we put in place.
Gotcha.
Do we actually offer staff development where we would offer teachers 3 choices and they could choose one? Or do we?
We used to. We haven't been able to do that in a while.
So the question is, moving forward, you know, should the board be interested in providing staff development on topics, on a sort of limited set of topics that is really sort of the primary focus of what people should be doing, or should it be more inclusive? Should the first bullet say provide?
Yeah, I think the first bullet probably should say provide. If you want district initiatives to be implemented, you have to provide the professional development.
Yeah.
If you want content knowledge requirements lived up to, you have to provide the training necessary. If you want benchmarking to be implemented properly, you have to, again, provide the training and have everyone work in conjunction, not in isolation, to develop benchmarks for multiple grade levels without any real discussion.
So why don't we just make 1 provide and then scrap 3 altogether, and then benchmarking just falls in that?
I think that's the right way to do it. So rather than sort of enumerate each one,
Right.
just say provide staff development that is aligned with district initiatives and content knowledge requirements.
Works for me.
Eliminate the third bullet, yeah.
The only thing that, the content knowledge requirements, you might also want to put state requirements along with it. That's the only suggestion.
District initiatives, comma, content knowledge requirements, comma, and state requirements?
Right.
Like CPR.
Yeah, that's a new one.
Yeah.
We've been doing that, though.
Oh, okay.
We've been meeting that new requirement actually on the high school level for years.
Yay, us.
It's a good requirement.
Yes.
I heard very compelling testimony multiple times when I was in the State House from the advocates who have been advocating for that for quite some time. It's hard to make a case
Do you
against
have
it.
that? Okay. Let's go back to goal 1. So to ensure the success of students by providing diverse and high quality educational opportunities. To achieve this goal, we will align curriculum with the state standards, specifically this. Has this been done at this point? Or are we still in process of doing this?
This has been done.
This has been done. Should we take it out?
We should take it out.
We would do very well on this bullet if it's already been done.
I remember at the time of taking these notes, it was felt that it was important that we have it in there, but
at the time.
Right.
I can't speak to every building, though. I will say that.
And I think also this is the kind of thing that, you write curriculum once, it looks good, you then implement it and you realize that it needs to change in some way because it's not really aligned. So I think this might be a good thing to keep in. And it could even say, continue to align curriculum, something like that. Yeah? Okay. So let's put continue to. Expend project and scenario-based instruction.
Yes, please.
We should put hyphens after project and scenario. Develop a system of benchmarks to measure the growth of all students throughout the year.
What do you teach?
I'm a lawyer. Don't forget. Develop a system of benchmarks to measure the growth of all students throughout the year. Like the physical growth, what does this mean?
The academic growth.
So let's change benchmarks to benchmark assessments. And let's add the word academic before growth. Good. All right, goal 2. Anything else on goal 1? No? Goal 2, all students will have enhanced educational outcomes as a result of staff using student-focused best practice. All students will have enhanced educational outcomes as a result of staff using student-focused best practice. Best practices? Anything else weird in there? Greg?
You think you might want to put a hyphen after student?
I do. I do like putting
throwing that
hyphens
out.
after the word student. Okay, so bullet 1 says provide staff development that is aligned with district initiatives, content knowledge requirements, and state requirements. Bullet 2 says create professional learning communities and school leadership teams to effectively communicate educational priorities and initiatives while encouraging curriculum integration and articulation. After what? Initiatives?
You agree? While? Before while?
It's a style thing. Encouraging curriculum integration. Is that okay? Does that sound right? The second bullet? Establish a professional development committee charged with conducting an assessment. So establish a professional development committee, just say to conduct.
To assess.
To conduct an assessment, to assess.
To assess building-based needs. Or to assess building needs.
To assess building needs. And the development and implementation of a district-wide and building-level professional development plans to meet identified needs. Okay, so to assess building needs and create, no. So again, so get rid of the comma after needs. And just change that to and develop and implement. A district-wide.
But would the committee really develop and implement?
They would develop it.
They wouldn't implement, though.
So maybe just develop.
They would make recommendations. I mean, a committee would make recommendations, and then the administration would decide what to act on, and we would,
So maybe not implement. Maybe just develop.
yeah. Or even not develop, just make recommendations.
Develop.
I think the state requirement that sets up these professional development committees requires that the administration is working with them to do
Right.
this. So when you say that they develop and implement, the administrator is involved in each building level
Okay.
professional development committee by code.
But it would still have to go through the district administration, right?
Yes, it has to be submitted for review.
Right.
So we're saying the committee doesn't really implement it, right? A principal would implement it, or district administration would implement it.
Right.
Okay, so we could say, and develop a district-wide and building level professional development plan. Is that A, or is that two different plans? So it should be develop.
They're usually done in conjunction with each other. The district-wide plan feeds off the building level plan.
Okay. District-wide and building level professional development plan to meet identified needs. Okay, so establish a professional development committee to assess building needs and develop a district-wide and building level professional development plan to meet identified needs. Good?
The only thing is, since you have building level, it's to establish professional development committees, because there are multiple committees that then feed into the one additional committee.
Okay. Is that part of the building level professional development plan?
You have to have your own committee in each building.
Okay, so if they're going to develop the building level professional development plan, it should be inclusive of that to create the committees.
So establish professional development committees or a committee?
No, a professional development committee. Right? There's one professional development committee that.
There's a district level committee, and then each building has its own.
Okay, yeah, so.
As well.
So that's more than one committee.
That's why I said.
Right. So
Okay.
maybe establish district and building level professional development committees.
Okay, there you go. All right, you good? Everybody else? Still awake? Good? Okay. Goal 3, to promote our schools and programs to the broader community. To achieve this, we will promote communication and outreach with the following community members: school community, the wider community, academic partners.
It was 1 o'clock in the morning. The broader community?
The Highland Park community.
Sorry?
The Highland Park community.
That works.
I don't think that we really need to put bullets here. And I'm not sure about the word promote, since it's in the title of the goal. Increase?
Strengthen.
Strengthen.
Develop communication strategies. Strengthen.
I like strengthen, yeah. Strengthen communication and outreach with, we should just say, the school community, comma,
Highland Park community.
the Highland Park community, comma, and academic partners. Yep.
It feels really wishy-washy, and it feels like the 2 through 4 of the bullet points kind of sum up the action items. There's nothing in the first bullet point that's doing anything. I mean, we want to promote our schools and programs to the Highland Park community. That's great. What are we going to do? We're going to redesign, rebuild the website. We're going to develop social media strategies, and we're going to explore ways to interact with Rutgers. I don't know what the first bullet point is saying beyond we want to do better. And maybe we could say we want to do better, but isn't that the whole point of this section, to say we want to do better, and so we're going to do these things
So
to do it?
So we could take the first bullet and just kind of morph it into the goal itself, because it's sort of the same statement, right?
Sure.
It
Yeah.
is a reiteration of the goal.
So we could say to strengthen. We could either say to promote our schools and programs to the school community, comma, the Highland Park community, comma, and academic partners, or we could say to strengthen communication and outreach with, and just have that be the goal itself.
Have it be the goal. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna make the title, or we're gonna make the content of the goal to strengthen communication and outreach. That just the way that first bullet read.
So the first bullet will actually become the goal.
Correct.
Okay. And I'm going to have some very concrete ways we can do that in new business.
Indeed. And actually, maybe we can put some of that in here now since we know about them.
We can, but we haven't talked about them yet.
True, but you could just put it out as a hypothetical.
Is a hypothetical that I'll talk about later? Do you want me to do that?
Well, let's go through these and then we can add it. So redesign, rebuild. I don't think we need the word of there. This should say develop social media strategies. Is that something that we are interested in doing? Explore ways to expand the district's relationship with Rutgers and community colleges with the goal of enriching the curriculum. Okay. And then we could add a fourth bullet. And how would you want to put that into, you can give some background about it now since we're talking about, since it's relevant.
Well, I mean, do you want me to go through the couple of specifics that were tossed out, or?
Sure.
So I attended the Public Information Committee meeting earlier this month, and one very concrete thing that the Public Information Committee is trying to establish is something called the Highland Park Update, which would be aired on HPTV, would be hosted by our good friend Matt Hirsch. And Matt, on a, I believe, bi-weekly basis, would interview a council and/or BOE member about any current issues that might be up for discussion either by the council or the board. And obviously, they're looking for a commitment from us to offer up either a board member or administrator, whether that be a central office administrator, building administrator, to go and speak with Matt and be interviewed about whatever the topic du jour is. And we would be, be given advance notice of what the issue is, so we could pick the appropriate person to go in and speak with them. But I think it would be a fantastic way a much better way to reach a broader audience for the board. And then there are other ideas that will work off of that one. But I mean, they're looking at starting this as early as October. So this was something I was planning on bringing up in new business, so we could start to discuss and then hopefully put up on our next agenda. Will we have to put that on the agenda to vote on, or we could just kind of
only if it involves,
all agree to do it?
Yeah, only if it involves something that we have to go out to look for a partnership with someone or that kind of thing.
Okay, so all the better if we could just agree to do it tonight. The council's already agreed to do it. Obviously it's something I would highly recommend that we do. Gary Leslie, who is the chair of the Public Information Committee, has also been working with FiOS to get the board meetings put up on FiOS, which would be great. Right now they're only on Cablevision, and FiOS has kind of dragged their feet for a couple of years to carry the board meetings. So Gary's really looking to increase HPTV's involvement with the board, and I think that's fantastic. Even up and including, he would love to have students volunteer at HPTV, find a way for us to be able to give the kids credits for community service credits for that, have kids record student events, sporting events, what have you, and have those broadcast on HPTV too. So these, I think, would just be all fantastic ways to get to reach a broader audience for us and show to the community, the wonderful things we have going on. So maybe one of them could just be to increase our, what's the word I'm looking for? To, reestablish and grow our relationship with HPTV.
Yeah. I mean, and the borough or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. Borough communications, something. Yeah, so there were a couple of items that were discussed, particularly live streaming of board meetings, which comes at a financial cost. And Brian's not here anymore, but there was some discussion about what that financial cost would be, given the kind of camera that we have and the kind of resources that we have for that. The second idea was the community service credits, and sort of a work study type of thing. There was third idea was something about starting a club, right? A TV club or an HPTV club, which was something that I know that we had had before. Okay, Mike is saying $25,000 for the streaming.
Yeah, Brian talked to me about that.
My God.
$25,000 for what?
It's expensive with all the equipment that would be needed and the types of cameras and stuff.
Okay. So we might look to them to see if they have equipment that we could borrow
Right.
on a limited basis. They do, I think. Is that right? They do. The
Not
borough does
sure.
it. I believe
can
that
find out.
they do, but I don't know for sure. But certainly, if that's something that we're both interested in doing, both organizations, then we should have
Right.
that discussion.
Yeah.
So in terms of the actual district goals, we should just add a goal that says to establish.
Actually, what I had written in my email to you would establish a closer relationship with HPTV and the Public Information Committee. Maybe just as simple as that.
Maybe like that. Simple, short and sweet. So read it again for the benefit of Linda.
Establish a closer relationship with HPTV and the Public Information Committee.
With the borough public information committee.
Yeah, the Public Information Committee was me and Mayor Gail Brill-Mittler and Gary Leslie, who's the chair, and Councilwoman Susie Welkowitz, Saskia Marina, Chaim Cohen. I think that was everybody. So it was a nice cross section. Yeah.
Highland Park.
Borough.
Yeah. Okay, good. We good? All right, goal 4, to develop long-term plans for the district. Establish a process to engage all community members in the development of a long-range and comprehensive strategic plan.
Sounds good.
Thoughts? One bullet. Good. Goal 5, to ensure, I guess the question would be, so I think in goal 4, we talked about this as the strategic plan, and then we talked about the technology plan as part of the same thing. Should we break them out, or should we keep them together?
Say it again.
Should we break out the technology plan as a separate bullet in terms of the long-term planning for the district? Actually write it in there? Mike's nodding his head.
I'm just listening to, in my head to Brian's recommendation to the board that it's never really been thought out to develop a long-term plan, particularly for replacement items.
Yeah, I like the idea of the, what is it, the end of life review cycle.
Life cycle management.
Life cycle, what was it? Life cycle review? Okay. So develop a technology plan that includes a regular.
Technology plan.
What?
I think to develop a technology plan. I don't know that we need to direct it much more from the point of view of this document.
Okay.
I mean, I think that that's where we need to get the recommendations from everybody and see how everything fleshes out. That's my 2 cents anyway.
Okay. Other thoughts? Okay. All right, in goal 5, to ensure the development of a diverse, multicultural, and the development of diverse, multicultural, and well-rounded members of the district, and nurture their capacity to become well-rounded and engaged members of society.
I'm sorry, Dan. I'm going to be a total pain in the butt and ask us to go back to 4 for a minute.
Sure.
I'm just looking at 4, thinking about 4, and then thinking about the year ahead of us, which is with most likely for the majority of the year with an interim superintendent. Is this the year to set the goal for long-range planning?
Yes.
That would seem to be the year to do that when we have a new superintendent in place do you know what I mean? To engage in a long-term planning process in a year where we don't have, at the helm we have leadership that is inherently short-term. Seems.
Yeah, no, I think that the long-term plan, I think that there's a strategic plan, which is the strategic plan, and then I think there's documents that can be created by principals,
Right.
through principals, with using the central office administration. I think the principals need to think long-term. They need to think about next year right now.
Right, but that's different than a comprehensive strategic plan. Like what we were talking about at that point was actually establishing that process where you decide whether this is something you're doing through school boards or whether you're hiring a private firm and you're doing the kind of bigger or overarching kind of planning.
Right.
And I'm just thinking that that's not actually something that's going to happen this year.
I don't see why it wouldn't.
I think it's something that has to happen. Otherwise, I think we get to the next budget planning cycle and we're kind of all over the place. So you're right in the direction, the day-to-day direction may not necessarily be addressed, but I think we have to bring in resources to help us think about that strategic vision.
And I think also, Bill Schlela's comments about, special services and ELL and rethinking kind of the way that those kinds of conversations they're not one-year conversations. So I think if we had, the principals, him, Israel, we start the process, we have some discussion in the fall, we have some discussion in the spring. I think that there would be a lot of input that would be very valuable for...
May I offer a suggestion?
Absolutely.
Having been here 20 years, I've seen some interims come and go. And oftentimes the position of an interim is to come in and make recommendations to the board or to the superintendent to make to the board about existing concerns. And so maybe one of the bullets is just to elicit recommendations from the administration on possible strategies for the long-term comprehensive strategic plan. Oftentimes I've seen where the administrators aren't really necessarily always part of that process. And we work with the teachers directly, trying to identify those concerns. We don't often get the chance to make recommendations.
Right.
So but what you're saying is basically make it a little bit less active. Make it so that the goal isn't to create a strategic plan, but it's about eliciting guidance and that sort of thing for long-term planning.
Yeah, I mean, I see like an interim year as kind of like a building year, as like a year where you're kind of like almost being more active listeners.
I don't agree.
The action, sorry.
I no better time to start than now. And we've got somebody who is a permanent fixture, who happens to be an interim superintendent, but he is our assistant superintendent. I don't know what his long-term objectives are, but I don't think we should be worried too much about that. He's an educational leader. He knows what he's doing. Any superintendent, interim, acting, or whatever you call them, they should know what they're doing, and we should use them to help us continue to build a strategic plan. It's not a one-time shot. We don't write it today and then put it on a shelf and refer to it every now and again. It's a living document. And the plan is less about a piece of paper than it is about a process that you follow. And if you get somebody who's willing to help us build that process, let's build the process. It doesn't matter who's doing it. Let's just get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I see it from a totally different perspective, and I disagree. Sure. I think the time to do that would be when somebody is coming in, on a longer-term contract, and that person helps to establish the direction and the vision.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly we bring in someone that...
I agree with that. I agree with that piece. Because they're essentially coming in as the CEO or the leader, but I think I'm buying into the words that we're establishing a process. So if we wait 6 months, 12 months, whatever the time period is, and we don't establish a process, one, we've lost all that time. But two, I think if we had a solid process that we developed with them that involved the community, which is the direction we're seeking to go in this, then at the time that administrator enters, there'll be a process under which they will operate. And that puts them at an immediate advantage rather than coming in and trying to establish those processes. So I'm with Greg. I think it's important that we focus on developing a process and a method of engagement and how those decisions will be made, in which that leader will then function.
I don't think we can keep technology on the back burner anymore.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about keeping anything on the back burner. I was seeing a strategic planning process is a very specific kind of process. And it just seems to me that this isn't the time to engage in that.
I think the difference is exactly what Ashley said, is that it doesn't say develop a strategic plan.
Okay.
It says establish a process to engage folks in in that process.
No, it does
right?
say in the development
In
of
the
the long
development.
range and comprehensive strategic plan.
But that process could be,
I'm all for the engagement part. I
Right.
guess I'm just not ready for the putting anything in stone at
so
this point.
so the board
That's all.
will achieve its goal by establishing the process,
Okay.
by working that kind of feedback loop out, I think. As opposed to the board will achieve its goal when there's a document that says strategic plan.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I mean, as long as there's some way we can word it in there that that's not what the intent is behind the goal, because when I remember us discussing it, that was kind of the intent, was that we were going to have this strategic plan to move forward. You know, like the borough has a redevelopment plan, and that's kind of what they use as their template, you know. To me, this was saying we are going to establish this template for how we want to move forward in this district for the next X number of years. And I'm just saying that right now, I don't think is the time to do that when we're in a transition year in terms of leadership.
But in 4 months, you might feel differently, or in 6 months, you might feel differently, depending on, you know, how things go, how the leadership is. I think that again,
this is- to me, this doesn't have anything to do with Israel.
I think that the bullet itself is about establishing the process for that, and I think that that's what we want to aim for, right? We had no process, then we had a process that didn't work, you know, so well. So now we're trying to find a more inclusive process. We can have some meetings about strategic planning. We can have all those kinds of discussions. But the idea is to try to engage in a process that's going to be meaningful.
I like to engage in a meaningful process. That sounds great.
Anything else on goal 4? All right, goal 5, to ensure the development of diverse.
Dan,
Yes.
did you still want to have a second bullet?
Yeah.
It says develop a technology plan?
Yep.
Okay.
To ensure the development of diverse, multicultural, and well-rounded members of the district, and nurture their capacity to become well-rounded and engaged members of society. To achieve this, we will support wellness issues, initiatives, and promote cultural competencies.
What does that mean?
Well, we were more specifically talking about cultural competency training for the teachers, and then going from there.
But what does it mean?
What do you mean? What does it mean?
What is that? What does cultural
means,
competence mean?
I mean,
I'm not being snarky. What does it mean?
being able to understand how the way you approach things may not be the way that other people approach things. So we're operating under different rules. Israel gave an example of a student being talked to by a teacher and not looking directly at them, and the teacher interpreted it as disrespect when in fact they had been raised to be respectful.
All right.
That first line is, I mean, members of the district are not diverse. The community is diverse and societies are multicultural, but members are not. So, I mean, I think that we're throwing in words that don't mean anything. I would say to ensure the development of members of the district in some way and nurture their capacity to become well-rounded and engaged members of society. It's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The first clause of that sentence, I don't think that we can develop diverse people. How about to develop and nurture the capacity of members of the district to become well-rounded and engaged members of society? To develop and nurture members of the district.
What do we mean by members of the district?
That's a good question.
That sounds like
It says members of the district here. That's why I
That
said
sounds like awkward phrasing to me.
So it'd be
Staff and
teachers,
students?
students,
Staff and
administrators.
students, right?
Staff, students, and administrators.
Okay.
You want to read that again?
To develop and nurture staff, students, and administrators? No. To develop. to develop.
I'll be honest, I'm kind of cringing that
Yeah.
we're saying our staff and our administrators are not well-rounded and they're not engaged members of society.
That's not what it means.
I know, but it's how it reads, that if we're aiming this at the staff and the students, we're potentially saying that we're nurturing their capacity to become.
So why don't we stop making this one so wordy and just make the goal that we're promoting cultural competency throughout the district? I mean, that's really the goal. Our goal is
We have to put
promoting
those wellness initiatives in there. We have to keep those wellness initiatives in
And then
there.
that can maybe be the...
Otherwise, Adam will have a fit.
Right.
What's the?
I mean,
so
can we
what-
just have
what
a
are the
goal
bull-
without bullets? I mean, that the goal, the actual goal is to promote cultural competency throughout the district and, you know, inclusive of wellness initiatives or something like that. Or to promote cultural competency and wellness throughout the district.
That works.
And just kind of get rid of the gobbledygook.
I don't know. Well,
Are we going
if
to
we
disagree again, Greg?
Yeah, maybe. For us to say that we're going to promote cultural competence throughout the district for our goal 5, and then for the only bullet point under it to be to support wellness initiatives.
No, I'm saying to put them both together as the goal.
Just get rid of the, to achieve this, that would just be the goal. Do we have to?
No bullets.
Do we have to have the bullets?
We don't have to.
Well, we need to get some concrete stuff from the administrators on how they're going to accomplish this stuff. That's for
Right.
sure.
And
We don't
There has
have
to be
to
some
describe
action
the how
items.
in here. We need
Well,
to,
we can
need
have
to
them, that we can
articulate
have
the goals.
provide professional development for staff and what kind of, Catherine, you seem the most, seem to have a specific idea with the wellness initiatives. Is there something specific?
No, I was just thinking of Adam. He
Adam.
always was the one who,
whoa.
who need, but we also are working with the, what is it, the Healthy Schools Initiative, I believe, still, which it was doing an assessment of the district. I don't know where that stands, but we would also be supporting that effort.
So maybe is there a bullet we can construct out of that? What is?
I mean, we can have as many goals as we want. The wellness initiatives are, in my mind, as sort of tangentially related to cultural competency. They're not the same thing. If we want to promote wellness, we should promote wellness, and that's great. And if we want to promote cultural competence, then we should be doing that too, and we shouldn't be muddying the waters between those two goals. We're trying to fit these two things together that don't fit. If we want to promote, I mean, maybe we just have goal 5, promote cultural competence throughout the district. And as we've discussed, we don't have to discuss the how it's going to be done. We're asking the administration to come back to us and tell us how they're going to do that for us. And goal 6 can be to support wellness initiatives throughout the district. I mean, Adam he's very big on this stuff. Not that I need to be his voice, but I know that's a big thing of his. He wants to see that here. I think it's important that we do that. So to have that just as a goal, that's not a bad thing.
So are we saying goal 5, goal 6?
That's what I'm
promote
throwing out
cultural
there.
competency and promote wellness initiatives?
I mean, I'm just trying to find a way to make it fit. I don't know how they fit as the same goal. They're not the same thing, in my mind.
That's how we ended up with a very wordy sentence.
Trying to
fit them
sandwich
together.
them together. Oh, I like breaking them out.
Get rid of the words for goal 5.
Dan,
Replace
you're
goal
furrowing
5
your brow.
with promote cultural competence throughout the district, and goal 6 would be support wellness initiatives throughout the district.
Isn't there? I mean, there must be some like social, emotional, and physical well-being or something like that, where we can just put those things there as the bullet points. I feel like having a goal with nothing sort of sussed out could then be taken in any particular way by the administration.
Well-
The point of what we do is to try to guide what the administration is doing. If we just set a bunch of goals without any action items, I feel like it's kind of passing the buck a little bit.
Well, I understand, but the bullet points themselves are passing the buck if you say it that way.
Well, but I think with
But I'm
cultural
not saying that
competency, we do.
I don't think promote cultural competency throughout the district is a very good bullet point anyway. It should be provide staff with training on,
I
you know,
agree.
cultural sensitivity or whatever it is.
But that starts to get into the how. I actually was, as I was looking at this, I was thinking about that. Well, what are we going to do to promote cultural competency throughout the district? We're going to have training for the teachers, training for the kids, among other things. And there's a lot of things that are currently being done in that area already that we could probably identify. The question is, can we do more? But then after I got through that thought process, I said, but I don't think I should be telling the administration how to promote cultural competency. I think we need to identify that it's important to us. I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't get more specific in the bullet items. I'm only offering up the thought process that maybe we don't need to be as specific. And that's not a very strong opinion of mine. I just think that it is important that we have to promote cultural competence or competency, whatever the right phrase is in the district. I'm not convinced that tonight I have the answers on how that would be done. And I think that's to achieve this, we ask our administrators to come back to us with a detailed plan of action that includes what's been done in the past, what's currently being done, and what can be done in the future to make all this stuff better. Mike?
So just to offer my 2 cents, there are absolutely tons of programs that we do on all these levels. I'm thinking of Diversity Day in the middle school. I'm thinking of the course I created now being called Global Civics, and all the different programs that we offer at the high school, and the whole Global Citizen Project that we're bringing in from Rutgers. All of these help to support all of these goals.
And Oscar had that wonderful program this year. What was Oscar's? Oscar Lee?
Well, that was through the DECA program, right? And I'll be honest, I'm not familiar very much with what Oscar's presentation was all about.
I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Yeah, I forget.
He put that whole wonderful presentation together. I mean, I think those are the kind of things that we want to expand upon things that our students
I was going to suggest that maybe a bullet point is just to support the expansion of existing programs that focus on multiculturalism and diversity.
Global citizenry.
Programs that support wellness as well. All of those are programs that we kind of have in place. We just need more support to help them to grow.
So in your mind, what should the goal itself, what should the overarching goal? I mean, in order to encompass that.
I do see them as kind of 2 separate entities, but if the goal of the board was to try to look at helping our students to be more well-rounded, then the wellness and the idea of cultural competency can kind of go hand in hand under the bullet points of supporting different types of programs to support the wellness initiatives and the development and expansion of our existing multicultural and diversity programs.
But cultural competency was also so very much tied in with the idea of staff development that we need to somehow separate
up. So that
up.
could almost be a separate bullet point as well.
Right.
And that would be a new, we don't really have. Right. I don't remember ever getting that kind of training, so that would almost be establishing professional development to enhance faculty and staff cultural competencies.
Right. Yeah, I mean, sadly, I mean, as much as I agree with supporting wellness initiatives, I don't know that we have things to flesh that out right now. I think we have a lot to flesh out, the idea of cultural competency or global citizenry, but I don't know if any of us, I mean, there's lots of things I would love to do, but, you know, I mean, not anything that I'm prepared to hit the ground running on this year.
And as administrators, we'll hit the ground running on many of those things.
Our old goal 1 was to ensure the success of students and nurture their capacity to become well-rounded and engaged members of society. We split that up because that included both academic pieces and also social emotional pieces. So
Do we want to put the cultural competency up in goal 2 with the offer staff development that is aligned with district initiatives and content knowledge requirements? Would that help? Or is goal 2 kind of more?
Like they're kind of still separate.
Yeah, that's more academic.
Yeah.
This goal does encompass more social and emotional learning.
Right.
How about something as simple as that? Support the social and emotional well-being of students within the district. To achieve this, we will.
And then you can kind of list
Yeah.
the whole wellness initiatives and the cultural competencies.
Can you say it again, or was that just a stream of consciousness?
To support, either support or ensure, support the development of the
Social and emotional
Thank you.
development.
To support the social and emotional development of students?
Of students.
Support wellness initiatives and promote cultural competency throughout the district? Good?
I didn't get that, sorry.
Keeping the first bullet and keeping the second bullet, basically,
What are we going to be using for the goal itself?
to support the social and emotional development of students.
Oh, okay, that's goal 5.
Yep.
So you're keeping the bullets, changing the text of the goal.
So.
To be inclusive.
What about students, what about staff and administrators?
Cultural competencies would be relevant to staff and administrators, certainly. Is it more about students? Should it be more about students, or should it be about everybody?
I would say our faculty needs a little support with their social and emotional health as well after last year. So I would include it somehow, but just carefully worded.
You want to stop thinking about this one and pick it up next meeting?
Sure.
We should do some thinking. All right.
Providing we only revisit goal 5.
Yes, only goal 5. Well, we'll have 1 through 4. We can just breeze through them, and then we'll get to goal 5. Thank you, everybody. All right. Any other old business?
I just wondered if there was any update on the homestay program. Have we heard anything?
I have not heard anything about it.
We had some complications with getting through legal. The
Getting through.
lawyers are insisting that this should have gone out. It should, as a request for proposal. Proposal should have been received in a competitive proposal situation. I ran it by the auditors as well, and the only reason it wouldn't go through some kind of a competitive proposal situation would be if it was what's called an extraordinary unspecifiable service, EUS, and they couldn't put it into that box. In the meantime, within the past month, we were approached by someone representing some Chinese people, that a firm or someone representing a organization that does very similar type of work, and they wanted to meet with Israel and I don't know if it's this week or the next. I don't know if it's been scheduled yet, to discuss possible opportunities. I don't know that they charge a fee. We want to hear what they have to say, but the bottom line is that the attorneys couldn't approve a contract that, that hadn't been vetted through the competitive proposal process. So
we approved the motion, but we couldn't approve the contract.
Right, well, that's the thing. The process wasn't, the contract was kind of put in our lap, and we were instructed to put it on, and everybody approved it, but the whole competitive RFP process was not followed. So the attorney wasn't comfortable moving approving a contract in that didn't go through the proper process.
So we have to revisit it.
I think we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we should notify.
We've been going back and forth with them. They are aware of the attorney's comments. They're suggesting alternatives, but bottom line is the type of service that they provide. If there are other firms that do that service, then other firms should have been approached, and some evaluation should have been made, or at least requests for proposals should have been made. So.
In the event that the firm that you're meeting with next week has structured, there's a way to structure this in some way that wouldn't require a proposal. Is that correct?
Well, if there was no charge to the district and they just brought people in, then
With tuition and
we're
that
not
would
really
be,
contracting with them necessarily. We're just contracting with the students.
right. Okay.
So we just want to hear what they have to say.
Yeah. Okay. Just keep us updated. Any other old business? I wanted to provide an update about gifted and talented. The students were all tested. All the gifted and talented students that were interested were tested, and the principals, I guess the Irving principal and the Bartle principal, have the results of those assessments. There's going to be some discussion with the new gifted and talented teacher who was just approved about setting the criteria for which students are actually in the gifted and talented program. And then there's also going to be discussion about what that program looks like once it's actually implemented. So it's not going to happen with all of these students who were just tested. It won't happen in the beginning of September. There's a meeting that's going to happen this week with parents of the current gifted and talented students, and there's going to be some discussion about what services they'll be provided starting in September. There will be more discussion as the new G&T teacher comes in about what that program is actually going to look like, though. So so that everybody's aware. Okay, new business. We got a request from Kelly Wizazanski about safety of the Irving playground, and we also got a letter today about another sort of tangentially related issue. And I also received an email from Linda about a jungle gym issue at Irving School and Bartow School. So first, I'll tell you about this. And basically, there are broken playground items at Irving and Bartow, and we now have quotes for installation of replacement items, and presumably these quotes.
We have one set of quotes.
One set of quotes. Presumably we're getting more quotes.
Yeah, he's working on finding other companies that deal with this equipment that are approved by Game Time to make installations. We need to make sure that the work they do is warrantyable.
Okay. Okay, so this is happening. So this is in process. So we'll get an update about this when it occurs. The letter that was written to the board was about a picnic table, which is at the Irving School, in the Irving School playground. Just correct me if I'm wrong at all.
It's on the corner of South 11th.
Yeah.
So it's actually not the playground, it's at the...
It's the other side of that corner.
It's within the fence, though. It's inside.
There isn't any fence. though.
No, well, she said she was on the
Which
corner
one?
of Central and South 11th. There's no fence over that.
There's a fence that surrounds the playground on 3 sides. The building's on the 4th side.
Right, but Central is not where the playground is.
Yeah,
is
she's
not
talking
what
about
she's talking about.
she's talking
That
about on the
wasn't my
other side of the
understanding.
building.
That one that's under the
So if
tree
you're
on the
facing
corner
Irving,
of the,
it's on the left side of the building.
Oh, that must be used by the
off the corner
Exactly.
of the old building.
I was thinking she was talking about the playground.
Yeah, no, she's talking about the other
They
side.
put it, and I don't even remember when we...
She did say the playground. Okay, that's fine.
So that's a question, I guess, about motion. Do we have motion sensor lights on the central side?
Now that, if you're talking about the back of the building where there's a little parking lot back there.
Yeah.
No. It's on the other corner of the old building.
Yes, there's a little parking lot back there. And there's the dumpster back there.
Yeah, yeah.
Back there, a handicapped entrance, by the handicapped
On
entrance.
Maryland, there's a parking lot.
Yeah, and the the picnic bench is, so the part that.
Somebody
this
pull
is
up
Irving
Google
School,
Maps.
And the parking lot is over here. The little picnic bench is over here under the tree, right on the corner of Central and 11th.
By the front of the building?
By the front of the building, but if you go along to the.
Okay, there wouldn't be any motion sensors there. The motion sensors are on the playground,
Okay.
on that side of the building. And I imagine there's a lot of trees over on that corner, and any motion sensors or would probably
Would be
get blocked by the trees. So I don't know. I'll have to take a look at where this picnic table is. I mean, maybe we'll have to move the picnic table. Maybe it's only being used by the staff, like to have lunch outside. Maybe we could move it.
And maybe not
I
even
don't
that.
think that it's very old, and I think even the intent was for when parents come here waiting for your child, or, just an extra place for somebody to sit, and even for staff or somebody during lunch.
Okay, so maybe just take a look at what the actual usage is and see if it needs to be there.
Yeah, I was thinking it was within the playground fencing.
Right. Okay. And then the sort of the biggest issue with regard to the playground is with regard to the usage during the school day or the time during which the school uses the playground, which is from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And so Ms. Wyszynski brings our attention to our board policy, which is that the Board of Education requires the playground affords residents with a recreational area when school is not in session. The board reserves the right to determine the uses to which the playground may be put and the hours when it may be used. So her request is that we limit outside entities from using the playground until after 6 p.m. And that's because of the after-school program and, the things that are happening during the day, which certainly makes sense to me. The question would be, how do we enforce it? And then do we need to add signage in some way that says something like, may not be used after sundown or something like that? Do we want to limit further the use of the playground so that, at 11 o'clock someone can't just roll into the playground and hang out there?
Do you know exactly if there was a particular incident or something specific that she's looking? Because, I remember with the girls being at Irving sometimes that the kids getting out of school would stay and play, and then the after-school kids would be out on the playground too. Like, I don't know if she's looking to stop even that, or if it's, I don't know what it is that she's looking to curtail or what the issue is.
I think it's a liability thing, right?
Well, I think it's a management. The after-school program staff have to know which students they should be managing.
Right.
And I guess if there's a mingling of children that are in the after-school program and children that aren't, there could be a liability issue, or there could just be a management issue where the supervisors don't know for sure which students they should be watching, and they end up watching students that they shouldn't be watching.
But so are we going? But then I think things start getting very fuzzy, because then when students are dismissed from pre-K or K and first, are we saying you must then leave school grounds and you can't be on the playground, or the second that the after-school kids come out on the playground, the other kids have to clear out? Because very often there is a confluence of those kids. So are we saying that's what we don't want to happen
I think
anymore?
it could prove complicated. It could prove complicated for the staff to manage them that way. I would say probably the first 15 minutes after school lets out. The after-school program's not out there yet, and certainly if kids are just waiting, hanging out for a couple of minutes, that's not going to pose a problem. But I think it's the length of time between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock that other children could come and want to play on the playground, but the after-school program needs to use the playground, and then there's the complication of knowing which students should be supervised.
Right. So we are saying that when the after-school program comes out, that students that have been dismissed and are there with their parents would have to leave.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what she's looking for.
And I'm sorry, Miss, this is from who?
Kelly, Irving principal.
I guess I would want that clarification if that is what she's looking for, because that did often happen, and there wouldn't be a lot of kids on the playground, but there would be kids on the playground, but their parents were there. So, I don't know if that's what she's looking to stop, or if
I have heard numerous stories of children being left unsupervised the
Well, that
parents don't
shouldn't
even
happen at any
necessarily
time.
stay. And so I think that's one of the bigger concerns, is that sometimes kids will come that aren't actually being supervised by parents and mix in, and that does create a real problem for the
Well, see, to me, that's a totally
after
separate
school.
issue than playground usage. That's no children allowed on the playground unsupervised. I mean,
I guess a question of enforcement, though, right?
Yeah.
How do you know
Well,
which
that's
of the
with
kids that are being supervised are, and how do you know which kids are not being supervised? And so what this would do, and I'm not saying this is a good idea or a bad idea, I'm saying what this would do would be just a blanket restriction on anyone who's not in the after-school program. And obviously that is probably the best thing to do from a district liability perspective. The question is that something that we could even enforce, and is that something that we would want to enforce?
I mean, I guess I would love Kelly to come and talk to us before we.
It was, I think it used to be that way. When the after-school kids came out, everybody else got off the playground. So there was an understanding there. I don't know how the enforcement happened, but it worked. I don't think there's a problem with actually making this happen.
As a practical matter, how is access to the playground, the physical access, managed right now?
It's not.
So are the gates always unlocked?
Mm-hmm.
So even during the school day, people can just walk onto the playground?
I would say probably. Schools are public properties, and if someone comes on there, if they don't belong there, they're asked to leave.
So, I mean, I would start. I mean, I think we need to talk about access to the playgrounds. I mean, the policy that deals with access to the playgrounds, but maybe it's the access to the playground question that's the primary concern. Should these things be locked one way? Should you be able to exit but not necessarily enter for particular time periods?
Yeah, I'm not
If
sure
we're
the
going to
word
have a
permitted.
policy that we want to enforce that says people shouldn't be able to come, if
No,
we
these
can't
are-
really stop, this is an enforcement question, right? So if you've got an issue of the gate, anybody can walk on anytime, who's going to enforce the policy that says nobody can be there? So then you need to talk about the possibility of having a lock on the gate. Well, who's going to lock the gate? Is the gate going to be locked one way? Is
No,
it going
these
to
are
be?
community.
I don't believe.
I'm asking questions.
Yeah.
I'm trying. I think this is just one of those things where what are we exactly trying to do? I mean, I'd like to hear more from Kelly what she's trying to do with this.
I suspect that she would like a sign, and then the people that are there working would simply point to the sign and say, "You're not supposed to be here. Please leave." And if they don't, then you can alert the authorities.
But we're saying just during after-school hours, basically.
Well, I mean, even in the school day, if someone is on the public property in a place where they don't belong, they're asked to leave. If they don't, then the authorities would be contacted, I would imagine.
I wonder if families do use it during the day when the kids aren't out there playing, though.
With children that should be in school, or with the
No,
little
with younger.
ones, like the preschool? I would imagine not. But again, a sign would say something to the effect of, used by school only during
Right.
school hours and until the time of 6:00 p.m. or something like that.
I mean, I think it's great that when it's not school hours, whether it's at night, when it's late in the summer or on the weekends, but I think, during the day and during after school, if you're not part of the after-school program, you don't belong on the
Yeah,
playground.
but see, that's where the sign would have to be more. The sign is one thing, but that could necessarily. The issue, it sounds like, more is the overlap of kids being dismissed and the after-school program, and that sign's not going to stop that because these are kids who are getting out of school, so their parents are on the playground after school and they're just hanging out. So, the sign doesn't necessarily cover the issue.
But they could be, informed, like, as part of the beginning of the school year instructions to parents that at the end of the school day, they're expected to leave the premises.
But that's such a huge part of the social fabric
Unless
of the
it's just
school is that the kids and the parents hang out.
This is a balancing question, right? I mean, it's obvious what the right thing to do is in terms of minimizing the district's liability and complying with the policy. It's the kids who are in the after-school program could be on the playground. That's it. But the question is that the best interest of what we want to do here? So I think we should ask for some more information from Kelly and get some more feedback and continue this discussion. Any other new business? We talked about the Public Information Committee pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the piece that I would like us to walk away with tonight, if possible, is a commitment that we would be willing to participate in the Highland Park update for HPTV. As I said, the council has already agreed to it. I think it would be an important step for us to make ourselves accessible in that way.
Yes.
Yes, who would take the leadership role in terms of liaison or coordinating those events?
I mean, I'm the liaison with the Public Information Committee, so.
That would continue with that stream.
And, I think any request would go through the president of the board. I mean, I wouldn't just arbitrarily start assigning people to, I would let Dan know whatever the issue was, or I don't know, they may even go straight to you. I'm not sure. We haven't really established all that yet, but, as long as the board agrees that this is something that we'd be interested in and willing to do, then, I think we'll establish those protocols kind of as we go.
And I think the club issue was pretty easy also. I think that was a definite yes.
Well, I mean, I think there's some, the things that seem tricky, and I don't know, Mike, if you might know something about this, that one of the things that they were saying about in terms of setting up either the club or the class and having the idea of students record school events to be shown on HPTV was that apparently at some point there was a video studio in the high school.
There was a TV studio in the high school. There was a class. It did a lot of the things you're talking about. However, unfortunately, we had to dismantle all that when we couldn't afford the upgrades that it required to keep it up with the growing technology demands that particular studio needed.
Right. So now the glitch, at least from the borough perspective, and obviously I have no historical information on this other than what I was given at the meeting, was that they said the equipment was not ours to dismantle or dispose of, that the equipment actually belonged to the borough. So there seems to be a little bit of...
We did have a discussion about that, and I don't believe that it's the district's perspective at all.
Okay, so that would, I don't know who would have to work those things out.
I had a discussion about this with Brian Humphrey when the question came up, and he said he recalled, the purchase of the items, and that was not the case at all.
That equipment's long gone. I mean, it's so outdated. It's just long gone.
Yeah, it was worth nothing. Honestly, it was so out of date. It was obsolete.
Right.
So, they would have been collecting pieces of, like antiques.
Well, so here's what I would say is if we're interested in reestablishing something like this, whether on a class level or a club level or however we would want to do it, it sounds like the borough is interested in letting students use equipment that they have that may be more up to date. So maybe we could get any, interested relevant parties together to sit down and discuss what that might look like, what equipment they have, and how, loaning out that equipment might work.
Agreed.
Sound good? I mean, does it sound like something from the, high school perspective we'd be interested in reestablishing, or even potential, or we'd have the staffing to accommodate?
I think it's a great thing. I don't know whether we have the staffing currently to be able to do that. Whenever you're starting a club, there is a procedure that the contract has for establishing new clubs. When you're using people that are not staff members, then there's also the background checks, and sometimes that need to occur in order to have volunteers work with students in those kinds of clubs.
Right.
And so those procedures would probably have to be in place to make all that something that would work.
Okay. So you don't think there's anybody currently on staff that would be interested in such a
I
club?
can't answer that question at this time. It's not something we've remotely thought about for many, many years when that whole studio unfortunately was dismantled.
Do you know how long ago that was?
Oh, geez. To me, it seems like it's at least 10 years. At least.
It stopped functioning. I don't know whether it was because of the obsolescence of the equipment or the lack of interest in the student body, but it stopped probably 15 years ago.
It didn't stop because of the lack of interest. It stopped because of the lack of ability to upgrade the equipment. We always had students that were interested in taking the TV production class until we could no longer provide the equipment needed to run the TV production class.
Right. I mean, it seems so funny. We have, Bartle TV, and then that idea just kind of like, it would be this nice thing if there was some way to have some sort of continuity. there.
It's just an expensive proposition of more technology that I know the students would love to have. Speaking about another school district, but my own daughter really experienced a wonderful TV production program at a high school level, and it set her off for the future and really established a career path for her. So that's a program I would love to see the high school offer, but that's a really expensive investment that the board would have to be fully supportive of.
All right, well, we'll keep talking about it.
It was extremely popular.
It was very popular. It was very popular.
Okay, but
Probably. The equipment was from
so, but for now, I will go back to the committee and I will let them know, yes, we are interested in sitting down with Matt Hirsch and being interviewed, and we'll set up a way for maybe Gary and Brian to talk about live streaming issues. And okay, great, thank you.
Is there any other new business? Okay, the Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. If you're interested, please state your name and your address and sign in on the ledger.
I'll be brief, I want to go home too. Tara Canavera, 361C Crowles Road. My comment has to do with your discussion on the strategic planning. And this is strictly coming from a special ed point of view. My daughter's in 10th grade and has been in special ed in this district since 2nd grade. And historically, Highland Park tries to make our children fit the programs, not the programs fit the children. Our new interim director saw that and wants to address that. I think you should let him take that opportunity, strictly because, in all honesty, our directors don't stay much longer than our interns anyway. And it's an issue that's been going on all those years, and he wants to address it. So I think it's something you guys need to approve and let him work on, because our kids need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara.
Hi, hello again. It's Melanie McDermott, still at 330 South 3rd Avenue, although my husband wants to know why I'm not home yet. So thank you. I wanted to just add a few thoughts about the district goals, but first I wanted to ask for a little context. These are goals for the coming year, and are they set annually? So every year through, like, what are our main goals for the coming year? So these aren't like, because they're on all of the, like, every agenda we come to. So I thought they were more sort of general principles of Highland Park education. They're that too, but they're with a view towards what we can accomplish in the coming school year. Okay, that's clarifying. So this makes maybe less weight to than the great grand significance, since you've chosen certain goals to function, just focus on for 1 year. But so to start at the end, because I know you table, or you're going to discuss it again next week about that 5th goal. As someone pointed out, it seemed to have derived from the fact that you had split out the academic goals, which makes sense. But I wanted to just point to a missing piece that I didn't catch all the discussion amongst you guys, but the social and emotional wellness does not capture. And I think it's really, really important, and I think that Highland Park thinks it's important, which is the whole notion of civic engagement. That first, the old goal statement about blah, blah, well, anyway, was to be about, sort of active members of society, engaged members of society. So I would just urge you, one possible wording, just to throw out as something to develop the capacities of students, and if you want to add, and staff, to function as culturally competent, healthy, which is what wellness is, right, and civically engaged members of society. That's a very broad goal, so maybe for 1 year that's not, but under that, so the wellness thing and the cultural competency. But I think that the larger goal that I think falls under personally, and maybe the board would buy into it, is that business that you're not just raising students to be academic achievers, though you want that, and to be knowledgeable, but you want them to make a difference in the world. And so as to what you would be doing to implement that, I think that the schools can already point to not just cultural competency, but civic engagement. But that's part of being, being a Highland Parker, in my humble opinion. So that's just a thought for goal number 5. And it'd be fun to think more about some of the bullets under that. But I understand that the goal is really where it's at, and then the administration comes back with ideas, and hopefully the community. And then just a couple things that I noticed had dropped out from last year. Maybe that's because you're not focusing on them this coming year, but I wondered, under the academic achievement goal, which is goal 1, the overarching statement is diverse and high quality education opportunities, but all the bullets you have are about compliance. And we all know compliance is a big deal now, but basically curriculum, benchmarks, and all of that. But there's not a bullet for new ideas and diverse approaches. So I just wanted to make a request for something about that creative and diverse element of the academic standards. And then one of the goals that dropped out completely, and then just smaller, less important item, but trade and tech dropped out. Maybe that's, I don't know the backstory to that. Then the positive learning environment goal, maybe there was reasons for it dropping out as a goal per se, but especially in light of all the controversy and change and flux and new demands on teachers, I just think that's really important. So I don't know where that belongs. The support teachers with the new teacher evaluation system dropped out, and I think that's an ongoing issue. And then the final comment on a goal sub-bullet. I didn't know if there's goals, objectives, and then there's how we achieve them. And those bullets somehow mix how we're going to achieve them with objectives. But under goal 3, seeking out alternate revenue streams dropped out, and that just seems like an ongoing challenge for our district. So I thought that was worth fitting in somewhere as something to continue to work on in the coming year. So I hope that was comprehensible, and thanks for a great discussion.
Thank you, Melanie.
Greg, I taped them to the podium so they wouldn't disappear anymore.
That's fabulous.
Hello, I'm Dennis Rody, 181 Dartmouth Street. I just wanted to give my input on the playground at Irving School. I'm a para there. I also do the after-school program. And I know for myself, one of my concerns has been that the problem with the children and the parents on the playground is that the gates are being left open, they're not being closed. They can leave the gate open and they're calling for their kids to come to them, but in the meantime, I'm concerned that one of the little ones that we're watching are going to be running out. We had one of the after-school children was given food by another child that was playing on the playground, and then we're concerned with allergies of sharing food. There's been incidences where a lot of times the children, when their parents are there, they don't follow the school rules for the playground during the day. And then it becomes a choice of, do I say something to the child? Do I say something to the parent? A lot of times I'll say something to the child, but then the ones I'm watching, they don't understand why are these children are allowed to do it, but they can't do it. We've had where the kindergartners start their lunch at 11:30. The pre-K parents from 11 to 11:30 were allowed to play on it, but it's quarter to 12, 10 to 12, and you're still asking these parents, you have to get off the playground. Mr. Luxembourg would have his classes out on the playground. The little ones are literally picking up the toys, moving them,
And I know it's a social function, but the parents are not watching their kids. They're playing unsafe on the playground. The vegetable garden was being torn up, and it wasn't from the after-school program. It was from the little ones that were watching, that were playing there. They're the ones. And we do have grandparents coming in with their grandkids even throughout the course of the day. You can look on the playground. You'll see them playing. I'm afraid that one day somebody's going to get hurt, or somebody's going to get hit by a car, or something's going to happen, and it'll be my fault. And I, and being that this is brought up, I really want the board to consider the safety, and what our jobs entail for the school there. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I totally hear the overlap. I wouldn't have any problem establishing that as a protocol, that as soon as after school comes out, or if there's a gym class, or if there's, something like that, I think I'd have a harder time with a blanket. You can't use it, at all during school hours, or, as kids are being dismissed, they can't stay on the playground at all, but,
I think the point is that as long as there's some sort of school-sanctioned thing that's going on, like I said before, it's an easy question. The correct thing to do from a basic legal perspective, liability, is to just restrict it to only, school activities, school-based activities. So,
and like lock it after 6 and no one
I think it should be locked during the day.
Or...
It should be locked during the day. The only entrance to the playground should be from inside school.
But then, look at the playground we have at the middle school, high school. That's
right.
just...
That's a different playground. That actually belongs to the borough, but in all honesty, we have the same concerns at the middle school and high school, particularly with the track during the day when our gym classes are out there and there are people running around the track. Sometimes those people aren't necessarily people we'd want running around the track while our students are out there.
Right. Right, but that's what I'm saying. We can't, there's no way to lock down the track in the middle school, high school playground.
That's shared property with the borough. I'm not sure, and I could be wrong, that the Irving playground is the same.
It's part of
with the new turf and everything, right?
Yeah, that is for that, but I'm not sure this case is the same with Irving.
Right, but the same with Bartle. There's no way to lock down that playground.
No, there's no locks here, too.
But I think that the people that don't belong to the school during the school day are asked to leave, because it is school time, it is school property, it's for school use during the school day, and that's it. You don't belong to the school, you don't belong on the school property during the school day.
Right, but that's different than the kids after dismissal.
We were talking about during the school day, like if a gym class comes out or things like that.
But I don't think that there's really a substantive difference between an after-school program that's run by the school and something that happens during the school day. It's still a school, if you send your kid to after school, if a school runs an aftercare program, they still provide all the liability. They still cover the liability, any damage, any safety issues. The school is responsible. So substantively, I don't think that there really is too much.
If we rent out the gym, like Bartle School Gym, in the evening to the rec department for their basketball team or clubs or whatever, that gym is for the exclusive use of the rec department because they are renting the facility. You could look at it in that respect, that the after-school program is renting the facility, or it's designated use to their program. If where I live, the Catholic Charities Organization runs an after-school program inside the school. They are using the facilities. That facility is for their use, and they're renting that facility, or pieces of that facility. So the rooms and spaces that they are renting are exclusively for their use. And I think that perhaps we could look at it in that type of respect.
Well, also, the playground's an extension of the school building. During the course of the school day, the facilities are locked down, right? You can't get into the buildings without being granted access. So if we think of the playground as just an extension of that, there should be some control in place. And God forbid that, who knows who shows up? I share your concerns. Who shows up on that playground?
But at Irving, it's just a totally different thing. I mean, that's how you pick up your pre-K kids, is you go on to the playground to pick up your kids and to drop your kids off. I mean, it's a little messier.
I don't think that the dismissal time and the entrance time are the issues.
But that is, I mean, because that's where the overlap with the after-school program happens.
Right, but I don't know that it's appropriate when you're picking up your child to stay there. I think that it's a dismissal time. You're being dismissed, and you're expected to be leaving.
Right, but then that's what I'm saying, then that's a protocol issue, that then we then say, after school, there is no playing on the playground if you're not part of the after-school program.
Right.
I personally would hate to see us lock up our playground. I see kids there on the weekends a lot, playing basketball.
We're not talking about locking it. We're talking about, we're talking about putting up a sign or signs to identify when the use of the playground is restricted.
Right.
And we're not talking about locks. We're not talking about not allowing people any time. We're just talking about putting up signs that say during school hours and up until 6 o'clock, the playground is not for public use.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would have less of a problem with that. I think we'll get some
I think that's all she's asking for.
Right. I think we'll get some kickback for sure from parents who have done that for years historically at dismissal or pickup, but,
Sure.
you know.
Hi. Excuse me, Ann Gowan, South 2nd Avenue. On the playground issue, I just would ask the board to maybe consider a sort of a more nuanced solution to the problem, well, a nuanced solution to the problem of the after-school stuff. I have nothing but the greatest respect for Mrs. Rohde, and I see some of the problems that happen when she's trying to tell people, you know, this is our rule, and parents aren't telling them, parents are enforcing a different rule. But it's just such an important social part of the school. I mean, that's how I've met other parents in Highland Park. That's when my kids interact with, I mean, you know, it really is. It's when we come into the district. And I mean, my kids are out there every day after school. Some board members' kids are out there every day after school. It's just important. So I wonder if the sign couldn't say something like, when the after-school program gets out, you guys have to clear out. I mean, that is the tradition among some parents, that when we see the after-school program come out, we leave. And maybe the sign could say that instead of saying no access to the playground between 3 and 6, or I'm sorry, between 8 and 6 or whatever. It just seems like there must be some kind of intermediate path. There's so many parents who use the playground with their kids. And obviously the sign could also say no on, unaccompanied children. Not that that would be enforceable. I just see it's a really important sort of part of the culture at the school and the district. And one other thing, but I can't remember it. All right, well, I hope the board will consider that. You know what, this is what it was. Dan was reading, were you reading, Dan, earlier something about how the school district is supposed to provide recreational space for the town? There was something that you read, maybe I misheard you, but I thought it was something about how the school was required to make some of the facilities available to the community.
Yeah, it requires the playground of the school. Wait, the board requires that the playground of the school affords residents with a recreational area when school is not in session.
Okay.
The board reserves the right to determine, in the interest of the safety of district residents and the integrity of the school facility, the uses to which the playground may be put, the uses to, right, may be put, and the hours when it may be used.
It seems like if you're saying it's closed to the public until 6 o'clock, then you're really not providing much of anything during the school day, especially during the winter. I mean, I think it closes at dusk anyway, no? So between 6 and 6:30, the public can use the playground. I hope that we can find something that kicks the kids out when the after-school program is out there, but allows parents and kids, particularly Irving parents and kids, to come out during the time that there's nobody there. In my experience, the after-school is not out there all day. They're out there for like half an hour and then they go back in. And the playground is sitting there empty. All right, that's my input. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? It's a really long agenda. We need a resolution to go into executive session 6:30 p.m. on September 8th, 2014 at the Bartle School to discuss personnel, litigation, and negotiations.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Need a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you, everybody.